welcome to Tuesday, April 14th. Good morning, everybody. Shalom. Welcome to Tuesday, April 14th for our Yizkor DIY class. Please post good morning cookie. Let me know if you are there so we can get started right away. Shalom. It is Erev Yantiv. Tonight is the last days of Pesach, and we are about to embark on a very special discussion group, a class, an interactive class on the last days of Pesach, on Yizkor DIY, and uncracking the code, unraveling the mystique of the last days of Pesach. Why this Yantiv is so seemingly unknown, and what's the hype all about, what's going on, how can you make this extra special, especially with your Yizkor. So I'm waiting for our friends to join us on YouTube. Oops, unable to connect the chat. Trying to get started here and see what is going on. I'm waiting for everybody to join us. We tried something new here yesterday. We tried to do something called a Facebook live screening or something, or a YouTube live screening, which would help us be able to pre-post such a class. I'm just trying to get a grip on how that works. And just want to make sure that our friends on YouTube are able to see us. I see that Stuart Levitt is with us and Sandy Boynton. So certainly Facebook is picking up. What about our friends on YouTube? Are you there or not? I want to make sure that our friends on YouTube can chat. This says something about unable to chat. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Sandy. Okay. Sandy, are you there? Andy? Just trying to make sure we've got everybody on board here. I'm not getting my YouTube chat group. Oh, Andy's on Facebook. Okay, that's good. So certainly Facebook is working. That's good. The question is our YouTube. I see we've got more than a minyan on both platforms. So I'm assuming we're good on YouTube to start. I just don't see any comments. I just don't see any comments on YouTube, and I'm concerned that you can post there. Either way, I think I'm just going to get started. Okay? At least I see the Facebook chat is working. I see Dean is with us, and Andy's with us, and Sandy and Stuart Levitt and Mickey and Cookie, all on Facebook. I don't know who's on YouTube, but I will try now to... Oh, I think YouTube just posted that we're live, which is good. So I think that means that the notification just went down. Living in a digital age is so interesting. Trying to work out how to live like this. But here we are. And again, I still don't see any posts on YouTube, though Facebook is live. I'm just going to roll with it. L'chaim. Okay. Oh, Fred says you can only watch, not speak. Okay, I don't know why that is. I see Fred is with us on YouTube, but he cannot post. Why is that? I just don't know. There seems to be some issue with YouTube connecting. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to get started, guys. Okay, let's get cracking. And I would like to welcome everybody. Good morning to our Yizkor DIY class. I hope everybody's doing well. Just a quick reminder that Pesach is not over. It is far from over. Pesach is a biblical yontiv of 8 days long. What a beautiful yontiv that happened last week on, I think it was Wednesday night. Yeah, it was Wednesday night. We had the first Seder. Thursday night was our second Seder. And that was just the first two of an 8-day festival. Not everybody knows that this is an 8-day yontiv. Certainly it is a biblical prohibition to eat any yeast, any grain, any fermented grain products, any chametz until the very end of yontiv, which would be this coming Thursday night. And not everybody is aware of this piece of information. And if you are, please do share that with your friends. Let them know that this is still Pesach, and therefore it is a biblical mitzvah not to eat any more chametz until Thursday night. Only matzah, no more chametz until Thursday night this week. So I see that on Facebook, everybody's still with me. Marty's there, Ramiz, Berisha, Enzo. Hi. Marty Knopf and Roberta and Bob Wertheimer are all there. Again, it seems like we're having a posting issue with YouTube, but we're moving forward. So what is going on here? I'm going to try to make this into a really beautiful class on Yizkor DIY to go into a very beautiful discussion as to what is going on in the last days of Pesach. Why is it that we don't really know about this Jewish holiday? What are we celebrating? And what does Yizkor have to do with all of this? And how can I observe a meaningful Yizkor during this difficult time of quarantine? So the general context of the last days of Pesach falls into two general themes. What we're celebrating in the last days of Pesach, see, there's two. When we say we have 8 days holiday, there's the first 2 days that are full-blown holiday, and the last 2 days that are full-blown yontiv as well. And that's like Shabbat. There's no driving, there's no phones, there's no emails, just like Shabbat. First 48 hours and last 48 hours. The middle days, which is where we are right now, is what's called Chol HaMoed, which is the mundane of the holy. It's this quasi-holiday. That means that we don't eat chametz, but still we're allowed to drive and you're allowed to use your phone, but you don't, it's not like full-blown Shabbos, but still it is a very holy day nonetheless, okay? So the first 2 days celebrate, we know about that, the Exodus from Egypt. But the last 2 days are celebrating the historical event that took place on our Exodus from Egypt, whilst the first night of the Exodus, the night of Passover, the night when God passed over our homes while a plague was raging on outside, sounds familiar. We were celebrating the plague of the firstborn. That's the night of the Seder. It was 7 days later, however, that the Jewish people found themselves literally between a rock and a hard place. Behind them was the Egyptian army pursuing, and in front of them was the Red Sea. On either side was the inhospitable wilderness, and they didn't know what to do. Stuck between this rock and a hard place, it's then that Moses gives them this timeless instruction of marching forward. He tells them, go, v'yisau, keep on going forward. And it was Nachshon ben Aminadav, the leader of the tribe of Yehuda, who literally jumps in front of the Jewish people, and he walks into the sea, following the instruction of Moses from God. The water covers his nostrils, and the guy keeps on walking. He does what he has to do. He's a soldier in the army. And as the water covers his nostrils, that's when the sea miraculously splits in front of the Jewish people. And that is the miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea. That is what happened 7 days after the Exodus, after the plague of the firstborn. And that's what we're celebrating on the 7th day of Pesach. The 7th day of Pesach, this miracle of the crossing of the Red Sea, effectively terminated the threat. While they were still in Egypt, and the death of the firstborn, whilst it was a beautiful miracle for us at least, it didn't eliminate the threat. We had to leave Egypt the next morning with the matzah baking on our backs because there wasn't enough time for the bread to rise. The matzah was an indication, a representation of the trust that the Jewish people had in God and in Moses, his servant. That Moses tells them, we're going to the desert, and they didn't ask any questions. They just said, okay, we're going to grab some food and we're going. This was the ultimate expression of trust and exhibited by the Jewish people upon their exodus from Egypt. That's why when we eat the matzah, we are literally ingesting the bitachon, the trust that our ancestors exhibited towards God. We are eating that and expressing that same trust in our lives today as we face the threat of coronavirus and the anxieties of a vacillating economy and all our other concerns. We're learning about this in the gates of trust. The matzah is the most perfect manifestation of our trust in God as exhibited by our ancestors in the biblical story. And it's this matzah that they ate. Sorry, it's this Exodus, the crossing of the Red Sea, which effectively eliminated the threat entirely, because only after the splitting of the Red Sea, when the Jews emerged the other side and the Egyptians were drowned in the sea, now that the Jews were finally able to heave a sigh of relief and say, Baruch Hashem, we are safe. Now we don't have to worry about it anymore. What we're celebrating here is not the vanquishing of our enemies. In fact, we find that the angels were reprimanded for singing God's praises while the Egyptians were losing their lives at sea. God actually felt bad for the death of his creation, for the death of the Egyptians at sea. What we're celebrating here is the fact that we experienced redemption and salvation from 210 years of slavery, approximately 84 of which were extremely harsh persecution. And it's for that reason that we only say the half Hallel. Hallel is the songs of praise. We say it every day of Yontiv, and whenever we have a happy occasion, we say Hallel. But in the first 2 days of Pesach, we say the full Hallel. On the last days of Pesach, we say the half Hallel, because our joy is marred by the deaths of the Egyptians. What the crossing of the Red Sea symbolizes is our ability to break out of impossible situations. This is what we Jews are all about. Whenever our back was against the wall, we have always been able to somehow find a way to overcome by following that timeless instruction of Moses, which is keep on going. There was different opinions among crossing of the Red Sea. Some of them wanted to return to Egypt. Other ones wanted to jump into the sea and commit suicide. Others wanted to go, wanted to fight. There was another group that wanted to pray. Moses says, no, none of these opinions. We just have to follow orders. Keep on trucking. Keep loyal to the mission. You got to do what you got to do. Trust in God. Everything will be okay. It will be good in the end. Just keep on going. And that's what the crossing of the Red Sea really symbolizes. It's our ability to trust in God against impossible odds. The whole world says we have no hope. There's no way you can do this, Rabbi. There's a sea in front of you. Are you blind? And this holiday recognizes our ability, our people's uncanny ability to keep on trusting in God despite apparent and impossible odds. Even when it thinks impossible. Remember, this is the doctrine of blind trust, which we've been learning about in recent weeks. When we trust blindly in God's ability to save us, that itself elicits God's blind blessing, regardless of whether we are deserving or not. It was this blind trust which was the essence of the crossing of the Red Sea. When did the sea split? Only when Nachshon ben Aminadav was able to exhibit his blind trust in God by literally walking into the water to the point that he was unable to breathe. That this really manifests everything that we've been studying since the first day of our quarantine here. Every day when we're learning the gates of trust by Rabbi Bakshi, the 10th century work, Gates of Trust, the duties of the heart. And it's all manifest through the matzah, the food that they ate in the desert, and the crossing of the Red Sea, the ability to walk into, face our problems without fear. And today we also are facing significant problems. We're facing the rise of anti-Semitism. We're facing the challenges that Israel's facing. Today is this Yontiv, marks the 1-year anniversary of the attack on Poway Chabad, where Lori Kay lost her life, and the rabbi It was just moments before Yizkor, actually, where the rabbi came out to wash his hands in the lobby, and that's where he met the gunman. Not the kind of guy you want to meet when you are getting ready for Yizkor, and that was that tragic event. Anti-Semitism tragically is on the rise. Israel's problems, we talk about the demographic time bomb, and we say, Rabbi, but what are we going to do about this? What's the solution? We have to cave in. The crossing of the Red Sea reminds us you don't have to cave in for nothing. Trust in God, and you will be okay. Trust in Him, and He will carry you. We worried about problems of assimilation of world Jewry, and Rabbi, you have these rabbis that say that we've got to dilute Judaism. We've got to make it easier for people. We've got to make Judaism more. We've got to market Judaism better. We've got to, cut corners because otherwise we're going to lose so many Jews. Don't worry about it. Hashem knows what He's doing. He's in control. We refuse to retreat or surrender. We Jews, we keep on trucking. I'd like to welcome people that just joined us in case you just did. Stephanie Marmer, good morning. Rob Berger, good morning. I'm here from YouTube. Rob, why did you move from YouTube? Is there a problem on YouTube? I see we have a nice crowd on YouTube. I just feel that they can't post for some reason. I don't know why. And if Ashley's watching, if you can somehow disable that or enable our YouTube people to watch, that would be great. I'm going to send her a message. And hopefully she'll be able to do that. Good. Let's hear what she says. Okay, good. And on welcoming Alyssa Macher and Yoni Herman from Johannesburg, South Africa. Alyssa Summers, happy Tuesday, Rabbi, and entire congregation. Hillary Wall, what do you mean by 84 years of persecution? What I mean by that, Hillary, is that 210 years of presence in Egypt, but only the last 84 were harsh labor. It was only when the last of Jacob's sons died, when Levi passed away, at the very, very end of the book of Genesis, at the beginning of the book of Exodus. That is when a new Pharaoh arose who did not know Joseph, and this one was concerned about the rise of the Jewish people to overwhelm the Egyptians, and that's when they started to do the real harsh persecution. That's what I mean by that. Hopefully that explains. Chana Siegelstein or Shal Abrams, my friend Yoni Herman, my classmate from elementary school and high school. Great to see you, Yoni. Welcome, welcome. Where would we be without Ashley Mickey? You are correct. Rob says we can hear and see on YouTube, but you cannot see comments. That's what's going on. Okay. I cannot see the comments on YouTube, folks. I'm so sorry. If you're commenting on YouTube, I don't know what's going on. We're on some fancy platform, which is called YouTube Studio Streaming Now or something. I don't know. We tried something new. I don't know what's going on. Nope. Ashley, I do not see the comments on YouTube. Sorry. It says unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. I don't know what that means. Sorry, folks, if you're trying to comment on YouTube. Chana says Chana and Andy are on. Andy, nice to see you with Chana. I couldn't post on YouTube, so I came over to Facebook. All right, good. I'm moving on, guys. Welcome to everybody. Again, if you want to post, I'm so sorry you can't post on YouTube. You can post on Facebook to join the conversation. So, what was going on? We're explaining just to join the conversation here. We're going through the context of the last days of Pesach. We're going to lead towards Yizkor, why we're remembering our loved ones at Yizkor, what we're doing, and how this what's going on over here. We are talking about the general context of the last days of Pesach, and that is we are commemorating the historical event of the crossing of the Red Sea, the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea, which is an exhibition of our blind trust in God. What happened was when the Jewish people came to the Red Sea, it's not that they doubted God. Everybody knew that God was going to come through. They just had seen 10 devastating plagues that allowed them to come out of Egypt. These people believed, but you know what they what they had a problem with? When they came to the Red Sea, each one of them said, we believe in God, but I'm not going to be the first one. I'm going to let someone else be the first one. I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to watch and see how someone else does it first. And that was the greatness of Nachshon ben Aminadav, the leader of the tribe of Yehuda, that he was the one who said, I am going to walk in, get my feet wet, my clothing wet. I'm going to be the first one to exhibit the miracle of Moses, the miracle that Moses is bringing upon us. And that's really what was going on over here. We're looking to our healthcare providers today. We're looking at coronavirus, and a lot of us we're afraid. We're going to stay home, right? But it's these healthcare providers that are going out there and making a difference. They're standing on the front line and putting themselves in harm's way to be able to protect us. And kudos to them. They are the nachshons of our times. one of our community members, Ricky Feldman, picked himself up at Palm Beach Gardens, went to New York on an empty airplane to be able to go into the line of fire and to help. He left his wife and child to be able to help the people up in New York. And that's the people that say, listen, I'm not waiting for anybody else to do it. I'm going to do it myself. So that's one major theme of the last days of Pesach. Another major theme to that's going on over here, to be able to put things in context before we get into the Yizkor, is the concept of the redemption, the final redemption. Whilst the first days of Pesach commemorate our exodus from Egypt 3,332 years ago, the last day of Pesach is what commemorates our future redemption from Egypt. From this current exile. That's what's happening right now. Our exile from our exodus from this current exile. Which is a fascinating concept, by the way, because, a lot of people think of Judaism as archaic, old-fashioned, always focused on the past. But when you think about it, a major part of Judaism is not only about the past, or it's not even about the present, it's about the future. We are completely future-oriented. We are postmodern in this Judaism, in our ability to focus an entire yontif on the future. Yes, the first days of Pesach are very famous, and that's what everybody's doing their Zoom seders, because everybody's worried about the past. But let's focus on the future, and that's what we're about to talk about right now, which is what this is all about, our ability to be able to understand and appreciate the revolution which is unfolding before our very eyes. The readings of the Torah for the last days are actually from the book of Isaiah. A few quotes from Isaiah chapter 11, some of the most famous verses of the entire Bible, entire Torah. And here are some of them. What we read in the last day of Pesach. A wolf shall lie with the lamb. The land shall be full of knowledge as water covers the sea. The scattered of Judah he shall gather from the four corners of the earth. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, nor shall Judah curse Ephraim. We will be talking a lot about this at the end of today's class. As we go into Yizkor in a few moments, at the end of today's class, we'll be talking about the Messianic era and the feast of Mashiach, the meal of Mashiach, which we're supposed to have on the last couple hours of this Yontiv on Thursday late afternoon. We'll be talking about this in great detail. But what we're talking about in general right now, the general context of the last days of Pesach, is this concept of Mashiach, the era of Mashiach, morning honey, which is an era of peace and end to anti-Semitism. Can you imagine a world without anti-Semitism? It's like unthinkable. That's the era of Mashiach, but not just an end to our enemies, to those who hate us. The wolf shall lie with the lamb being a metaphor, but an awakening of genuine spirituality and enlightenment. Knowledge of God shall fill the sea, like it shall fill the land, like the sea, like the waters cover the seabed. There'll also be this concept of unity as the Jewish people will return to a secure and peaceful land of Israel. It's unfathomable, and an extraordinary sense of Jewish unity, where the tribes of Israel will be reunited. Can you imagine? It's almost unthinkable that the Jewish people actually all get along with each other. Since King Solomon's successor, his foolish son, Rechavam, divided the land of Israel into two kingdoms, we've never really recovered. We've never experienced true unity since the days of King Solomon, folks. That's a long time ago. 2,800 years ago or so ago. 2,900 years ago. We've been fighting ever since, and that unity will be restored with the coming of Mashiach. That's what those verses were about Judah and Ephraim. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, nor shall Judah vex Ephraim. The redemption from Egypt was concluded and perfected by the crossing of the Red Sea. That's what ended the threat, terminated the threat of the Egyptians by killing them. So too, Mashiach will conclude all of our problems as we enter an era, not only of putting away our problems, but also of higher consciousness and enlightenment, as we are experiencing the presence of God and the ability to sense divinity all around us, much like an X-ray, So just like with coronavirus, we're suddenly aware about all these little around us, so too if Mashiach will be aware of the presence of divine energy all around us. And this, by the way, is not something which is in the distant future. Our prophets tell us that in the month of Nisan we were redeemed from Egypt. That's this Jewish month. So too we will be redeemed from this current exile in the month of Nisan. There are those that say that actual that Talmudic phrase about being redeemed in the month of Nisan actually has the numerical value of this Hebrew year of 5780. God willing, it should happen now, this year, and not next year in Jerusalem, but this year in Jerusalem. So, in summary, it's the 7th day of Pesach and the 8th day of Pesach. The 7th day of Pesach, which really concludes the Exodus of the past, and the 8th day of Pesach, which concludes the Exodus from the future, both of which, the crossing of the Red Sea and the coming of Mashiach, provide complete protection from us from harm. And here we've got this interesting dichotomy of celebrating the past, the Exodus from Egypt's completion, together with an eye on the future. It's both the past and the future, and that's where Yizkor sort of fits in here, because you know, just like momentum, the scientific physics equation for momentum, P equals mv. Momentum equals mass times velocity. If you want to move forward, you need mass. You can't just have velocity. You need mass. You need to have weight. You've got that. That's what's going to bring you forward. And that weight is the weight of our ancestors. For us to be able to enter the Messianic era, to do that, we've got to be able to remember our loved ones. That's a deeper context of what's going on over here. It's only upon the shoulders of our ancestors and taking them with us that we are able to truly merit to enter this extraordinary era, the coming of Mashiach, which is what's happening in these last days of Pesach. And it's almost like I often like to say, it's only when you know where you're coming from that you know where you're going. It's with the ability to remember our loved ones, to remember where we're coming from, that we're able to truly understand the direction in which we're headed with the coming of Mashiach. I'd like to welcome Arlene Levitt. Good morning. And Graciela. Any comments or questions, please, friends, feel free to post your questions on facebook.com/Jewish Gardens. I do not see any comments on YouTube. There's some sort of disabling going on YouTube right now on the YouTube page. We've got a nice crowd of listeners on YouTube, and I appreciate your presence there. But if you want to post anything, you've got to move to Facebook. That's the only place I can actually see your comments. So if you have any questions or comments or critique, please feel free to post those questions on facebook.com/Jewish Gardens, where we are currently taking comments. So that was the general context of the last days of Pesach. Let's move into the more specific observances. So comes tonight is Tuesday night. We're entering a 48-hour yontiv. It's very important to put your email on autoresponder and your voicemail. I can't be returning voice messages because otherwise people will think that you're absolutely ignoring them. Tonight, we light candles like a regular Shabbos or yontif. The ladies do this with 2 blessings. Normally on a yontif, you do 2 blessings. One is a blessing of the yontif. And the second one would be a blessing of Shechianu when you do something new. Anytime you start a yontif, you say a blessing of Shechianu. But this is the only Jewish holiday where you do not say a blessing of Shechianu when you light the candles tonight. And the reason is very interesting. I see that Yoni Herman from South Africa tells me that Yossi, his brother, says Hazer, which is awesome. And I also want to welcome Kramer Wellness Team. I'd like to welcome Kramer Wellness Team. This apparently is a woman who I think joined our email list yesterday, and she just lost her husband. I think it was yesterday to coronavirus. And then she got our email, and she was very moved by the concept about this class. And to Sarah, I want to say, may Almighty God comfort you for your tremendous loss of the passing of your husband, Moshe Arya. I see that you're there with us, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm glad that you're here with us. He passed away in a nursing home. I'm not even sure where, from coronavirus, from COVID-19, and may God comfort you for this tremendous loss. This is obviously a Yizkor that you're going to be remembering. Your dear husband, I'm not sure how long you were married. I think you wrote it to me in an email late last night. Moshe Arya was married to you. I didn't see it. In any event, may you be comforted again for your loss. So here we are, and we're talking about the observances of the last days of Pesach. So we light candles tonight. It's the only yontiv of the year where we don't say Shehechiyanu. Why? Why don't we say Shehechiyanu? First of all, there's two things remember we're celebrating here. One is the completion of the Exodus from Egypt, which is the crossing of the Red Sea. That we've already made a blessing on this, the Exodus from Egypt. So the fact that we completed the Exodus with the crossing of the Red Sea and the elimination of the Egyptian threat, that we can't really make a Shehechiyanu on. We already did it last week when we blessed it before the Seder. As for the second component of the last days, which is the exodus from this current exile, the coming of Mashiach, a state of higher consciousness, the redemption from anti-Semitism and Israel's problems and assimilation, and all of our current problems today, for the coming of Mashiach, that's not actually happened yet. So we can't make the blessing of Shehechiyanu on that actual occurrence until it actually happens. However, there is another candle that we're supposed to light, and that's a 24-hour candle, two 24-hour candles that you're supposed to light. One 24-hour candle you light because, does anybody know the times that we're supposed to light the candles? When we're supposed to light the candles? I'll tell you the times. Here we are. Tonight you're supposed to light the candles at before 7:27 p.m. That's tonight. But tomorrow night, on Wednesday night, April 15th, you're supposed to light the candles after 8:21 p.m. But when you light those candles, you can't light them from a regular flame. You can only light them from a pre-existing flame. And that's why you want to light tonight a first yahrzeit candle, which will give you flame for tomorrow night to light your candles after that time, after 8:21 p.m. tomorrow night. And also you want a second candle. That second candle is the yahrzeit licht. That is the Yizkor candle. Why do we light a Yizkor candle tonight, which is going to burn for 24 hours? What's the reason for lighting this Yizkor candle? And here goes. The reason is because Proverbs tells us, King Solomon in the book of Proverbs, it tells us, Ner Hashem nishmat adam, for man, the soul of man is God's candle. The candle is a metaphor for our human beings' souls, which is a godly soul. Our godly soul within us is a metaphor to a candle. Why? Because candles got a lot of interesting properties. It's the only thing in this world which doesn't go down. It goes up. And as it goes up, it's yearning for something more. That's represented by the candle, like the human soul, the godly soul, which is inherently unhappy with being in this world. It yearns to go higher. In fact, it knows that it doesn't belong here. It belongs somewhere else where it comes from. It wants to go home. As a human being, we have this tension where, just like a candle, we have the wick drawing it downwards, because you got the flame pulling upwards. So too, our bodies are like a wick that are drawing us downwards, but our souls, our godly souls, are pulling us upwards, which is to Hashem, which is where the godly soul comes from. It's a piece of God. Like a candle, it's unsatisfied with the status quo. It's never at peace. Our godly souls are always yearning higher. You can't put a human being in a box. To lock up a human being in a jail cell is considered by Torah inhumane. Human beings have to be creative, have to be able to make new things, to venture and to grow. To put a human being in a jail cell is considered inhumane. Very interesting. We taught a course about that once, recently actually, about ethics and Jewish ethics. But that's for another time. Nevertheless, as much as the fire wants to be somewhere else, it understands the needs of the present moment, and that though it wants to be somewhere else, it is needed here for light and for warmth. And that's what the soul does as well. Even though it wants to be in heaven, it knows that it's needed down here for purpose and for illumination and for tikkun olam, as we're about to talk about. And that's why the candle is the best representation of the soul. Our holy books tell us that when the souls of our loved ones see that we're remembering them through a candle, the soul is comforted by this adequate memorial, by our ability to comprehend and understand that the soul is not, that our loved ones are not dead, are not deleted, disappeared, just because they're out of sight, therefore they're out of mind. When they see that we remember them through a candle, we're giving them a coded message that we know that like the fire is pulling upwards. We know that you are somewhere just above us, just higher, and that you're watching over us, and the soul is deeply comforted by that concept. Not only is it a comfort for the living, for the deceased, it's also a comfort for the living, as they sense a higher purpose for their souls. I want to share with you a quick story here about a Jew who entered the private audience of the Rebbe. You know, when you stood in private audience, there was like a line. People stood for many hours waiting, all through the night, waiting for a few moments with the Rebbe. So there was a Jew. He sees another guy who's distraught, totally broken. He walks into his private audience of the Rebbe, and he comes out a few minutes later, and he looks like a changed man. He's all smiles. The guy goes over to him and he says, I've been watching you for a few hours. You were broken tears, full tears. And now you left the Rebbe's audience and you're all smiles. What happened in there? The guy says to him, he says, look, you know, I'm bereaved of my son. I have an only son, and my only son passed away. And I walked into the audience and I was totally a broken person. The Rebbe looked at me and he says, tell me, if you knew that your son is okay, that your son is alive, but he's just in another country, would you feel better? And the guy said, absolutely, I would love that. I would feel totally at peace. So the Rebbe said to him, I want to assure you that your son is alive. He's okay. He's not in this physical world, but he's just higher. He's moved upstairs. He's on the second floor of our house, as the Rebbe told someone else once. He's on the second floor. Imagine your mother lived with you, your husband, you know, for Sarah, your husband lived in your house, and now he moved upstairs to the next level. He's okay, he's fine. He's just on the next level. Now he's moved apartments. And with this, and obviously they're watching us, they're engaged with us, and they care about us, and they advocate on our behalf. With this, I suddenly felt, the man said, a burden was lifted off my chest. Then the Rebbe continued to assure me, he said, you not only is your loved one just above, but you can actually send them gifts. You can send them packages. Every time you do a mitzvah, every time you give tzedakah, you are doing an extraordinary gift package to them. And that's the kind of gift package they can get. You can't send them milk and cookies. You can't send them their favorite brownies or, their favorite dinner. That's not the currency that they understand right now. But you can send them, you absolutely can send them your mitzvahs. That's the currency of the country that they're living in right now. And that's represented by the candle. The candle is a different substance. You can't give a candle what you give a child. A candle is something which burns. It's different. It's got a whole different set of rules. And the Torah tells us this is what our loved ones need right now, as we'll be talking about in just a few short moments, as we really get into the Yizkor in a few moments. And that's why this man now suddenly felt so different. He says, not only do I know my son is okay, I know that I can still communicate with him, and this is amazing. That's why I felt like this burden was lifted off of my shoulders. And that's what's happening over here when we enter this Yizkor, thinking of our loved ones by lighting this candle. Not only for them, but also for ourselves. We're experiencing a paradigm shift as we realize that they're not gone. They're just in a different form. You know, I was discussing this with Warren the other day. He was telling me that he had a hard time understanding this concept. And I said to him, it's actually a law of physics. It's the first law of thermodynamics, also known as the law of the conservation of energy. Energy is never lost. It's only changed into another form. Now, if that is true of physical energy, how much more so is it true of our lives, for heaven's sake? You can't just say, it is unscientific to say that our lives we just reach a cliff and it's all over. No, you reach a point where things change. You're just changing the game a little bit. You're just changing the game a little bit. What you're doing is that it's It's like a changing economy. You change an economy. You need to change your job a little bit. You need to change how you work. Like us. We started this quarantine, right? So people aren't coming to show anymore. But what are they doing? Now we're virtual. What a great example. We're now virtual. If somebody would stand outside our show and be like, oh, Chabad Palm Beach Gardens is dead. It's dead. I haven't seen a person walk in the past 3 weeks. But that person is obviously missing the point. Because what's happened is that Chabad Palm Beach Gardens is not dead. It's actually more alive than ever, because now we're learning Torah not with 100 people a week. Now we're learning Torah with 1,000 people a week, maybe more, with our virtual Torah study that's happening on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're standing outside the door, my friend, you are in the wrong place. Well, maybe in the right place, but in the wrong place, because you don't realize that we've gone virtual. And maybe, Warren, that might be a really great example to explain to you what's happening when we are remembering our loved ones in a different format. Yesterday, you could see your loved ones face to face and give them a hug. Today, you can't give your loved ones a hug. They're on Zoom. Does that mean they're dead? No, they're just in a different dimension. What a great example of how we too can experience our loved ones in a new dimension. They've gone virtual, my friends. And the way you connect with them is not by buying an airplane ticket. JetBlue is not going to help you see your loved ones. The way you'll see your loved ones is by getting a Zoom account or learning how to use FaceTime or video calling. That is what's going to get you to your loved ones. That's what happens when we die, when our loved ones die. You can't connect with them with milk and cookies anymore and with a pot roast, gefilte fish. Now you connect with your loved ones through Torah and mitzvahs. That's the code. That's the password. And now we're going to get into 5 components of Yizkor. I'd like to get into why. First I'd like to do what is Yizkor, why, when, who, and how. What, why. A quick instruction here from Ashley, and I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to do something quickly to see if I can see our YouTube comments. Oh, I got our YouTube comments. Ashley, you got it. You're the best, Ashley. You are the best. Thank you so much. Something you just told me to do. I see you. I'm just going to quickly catch up on our YouTube comments. Warren on board. Rabbi, good morning. Nice to see you again. Warren, Helen, good morning. From Elaine, Jacob, Fuchs from Haifa. Chag Sameach. Oh, so good to see you. Marinov, Ronald Collins is here in Hebrew. And Jay Rosen, Jay and Marlene are here. Daniel Klein, Wellness. That's Sarah. Ashley's with us. And Adrian, buenos dias in Spanish. Bet Tfilah. I don't know who that is, but it's good to see you. And Chag Sameach Lekulam from Jacob Fuchs. Good. So, good. So thank you, Ashley. I see that we have our comments live again on Facebook, and I appreciate on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for that. So I am now back in business. Good. Wonderful. Keep on this class. I'm moving forward. Okay. So how does this Yizkor thing actually work? So far, I'm hoping that I've been able to explain to you, and I'm hoping you can identify. Can you relate to that metaphor of the virtual community that we've evolved? I think it's such a perfect metaphor, my friends, to explain what's happening now with our loved ones on Yizkor. If you're going to be adamant and say, I don't care what the rabbi says, I am going to stand outside the shul. I'm going to pray the same way that my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents prayed. I'm going to pray the same way. And you're going to show up to shul on tomorrow. You're going to stand outside the door and you're going to show them all. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to connect to Yizkor. You're not going to be able to connect to the minyan. The minyan is not outside the door. The rules of the game have changed. And if you're going to say, I don't care what the rabbi says, I'm still going to eat milk cookies instead of Yizkor. That's how I'm going to connect with my mom. Sounds good, but you know what I mean? That's not where mom is. Right now, mom's on Zoom. She's waiting for you to answer that call. And if you're not answering the call because you're busy eating the milk and cookies, you're going to miss the boat quite literally. So I hope that that makes sense, friends, to you, and that you can relate to that analogy. I really like that analogy. So good. You might have noticed. Fine. Again, feel free, friends, to challenge me, ask me questions, disagree with me, and we can make this happen. Okay. I'd like to dedicate this lesson, by the way, to the memory of so many of our loved ones that we've lost in this coronavirus. Rabbi Leibel Groner is the Rabbi's secretary for so many years. Worked very closely with Rabbi Krinsky, with Chana and Leibel's grandfather. to just countless individuals that have passed, young and old. It's just such a devastating blow to their memory. And to the memory of Lori Kay, who last year in Chabad of Poway went to Shul to say Yizkor for her mother, I believe, and ended up losing her life during that attack in Poway on the last day of Pesach last year. And let this year's Yizkor be to her memory as well, this class. So what is Yizkor? We do this 4 times a year. 4 times a year. I'm just gonna, before I do that, so 4 times a year we do it. It happens during the 3 main Jewish holidays, and they are the last day of Pesach, the last day of Sukkot, and the last day of Shavuos, which is the second day of Shavuos. And we also do it on Yom Kippur. That's 4 days a year. It's a cherished service because it connects with our loved ones, no matter how religious or irreligious, how completely non-observant people are. They will come to Shul. They'll do the Yizkor in the memory of their loved ones to bring merit to their souls. Now, it's preferable to do this Yizkor with a minyan. Absolutely preferable. Why is it preferable? Because the power of a congregation, the power of a minyan, is so much greater than the power of an individual. The way it's put in our holy writings is that when we approach God as a quorum, our prayer, our request can never be spurned. However, when we approach God as an individual, our prayer may or may not be accepted. That's the big deal. It says that the prayers between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the power of an individual prayer is as great as the power of a community throughout the rest of the year. It's quite possible that right now that God has orchestrated events in such a way that we cannot daven with a minyan. I have no doubt in my mind that today davening alone is just as powerful as davening with a minyan, because that's simply the way that God wants it to be. But generally speaking, and that's why certainly the Yizkor this year you should do by yourself. Absolutely, you should do it by yourself. But the power of the minyan should not be mitigated. Also, in the presence of saying the Yizkor in the presence of the Sefer Torahs is also with them where they are now. Remember, it's like having a Wi-Fi connection close to your Zoom Seder, close to your Zoom video conference with your kids, grandkids. That when you're close to the Wi-Fi, when you're close to the Torahs, it helps to strengthen that connection. Stuart Klein, good morning. Welcome to our Torah study today. Bet Tefillah, good morning. A rabbi and community connected with Yizkor. I'm not sure who Bet Tefillah is. Is that Bet Tefillah Atlanta? I don't know who that is. And Elaine says also Rabbi Bakshi, Drona, former chief rabbi of Israel, who's also now on another plane, lost to coronavirus. Not lost to us. Moved upstairs. Let's try to redefine our perception of that. So let's be clear. The Torah, the code of Jewish law does allow us to say Yizkor without a minyan. Not only this year are we allowed to say without a minyan, but this is actually how God wants it to be this year. Remember, we never find ourselves in a situation. We are where we are because we are meant to be there. And this year, God apparently wants us to say Yizkor on our own. God wants us to do it this way, and that's how we're going to do it. So that's the what. But let's talk about the why. Why are we doing Yizkor? What's happening over here? Yizkor means to remember. Why are we doing this? What's happening over here? To understand this, we really need to understand a little bit more about the afterlife. As Jewish people, we know that our souls are literally a piece of God. And like God is immortal, indivisible, and indestructible and eternal, so too are our souls. They can never die because God can never die. As mentioned earlier from the law of the conservation of energy, or as our nuclear physicist here, Andy says, good physics analogy is E equals mc squared. I'm sure Andy can explain that to us. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Energy is never lost. It just transforms into mass. Mass transforms into energy. So mass, the way we know it, transforms into energy. It's interchangeable. So certainly our lives, therefore, do not disappear. We don't just vanish. We continue and we go into an afterlife. What is the afterlife? Let's talk about this a moment. Just like life in this world, no two lives are exactly the same. So too in the afterlife. It's unique and it's custom. It's a spiritual world, a world of divine consciousness. In this world, we struggle with evil and darkness and challenges and problems. The afterworld is a world of emes. This is called the world of sheker, a world of lies. And the afterlife is a world of truth. There's no darkness. There's no evil. There's just purity. There's goodness. There's holiness. There's just wisdom and higher consciousness. But the entry level of a soul into the afterlife is shaped by the actions of the soul in this life. That's a very important concept to understand. As much Torah as you studied, as much mitzvahs as you observed in this world, that's where your entry level is into the next world. Think about an immigrant coming to the United States of America. Where would they place him? Would they send you to Wichita, Kansas? Or would they send you to Palm Beach Gardens, Florida? Would you get a 12,000 square foot mansion here? Or would you get a tenement apartment in the Bronx? It all depends on where you're coming from, right? So when you go to the Golden Medina, when you go to the Promised Land, to the afterlife, to Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, that all depends on how you lived your life. And that's the judgment, not the Christian concept of judgment, which is evil and harsh and eternal damnation. We don't believe in any of that stuff. Our judgment is just to know where to process you, where to put you. So do you need a little more cleansing? That's when they send you to purgatory to clean up a little bit, like through a dry cleaner, not for evil punishment, but just like a dry cleaner. Sometimes they need to send you back to this world because you've got unfinished business. That's called the Gilgul. It's the reincarnation for a tikkun, a repair. That's another class for itself. And sometimes you're good to go straight into heaven. You're good to go. By the way, to get into heaven, typically you need to finish the 613 commandments. That's how the Arizal explains it. And to do the 613 commandments, you might need more than one lifetime. The Arizal tells us that all of our souls have been here before. We've all been here before. If you have a fascination with some era of Jewish history, the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition or something, you probably were there. And we are in our multiple lives right now, and we've got to finish the mitzvahs, the 613 mitzvahs, to be able to let us proceed into the next level, which is to give us access to heaven, to Gan Eden. And once we get into the afterlife, you're in a constant state of growth. You keep on growing. Every day there's the greater elevations. Remember, we said the human soul can't be trapped in a box. You're constantly growing with higher consciousness and divine awareness. That's what's happening in heaven. So on the one hand, it's not passive, but at the same time, it's also not active. Why? Because a soul can't self-elevate. It's a little bit like an airplane, which is on autopilot. The way it's programmed, that's how it keeps on flying. So to our souls, the way we enter heaven, that's where we go. That's the trajectory we go in to keep on elevating. But we can't self-elevate beyond our pre-programming once we've been judged and entered into the computer system into heaven. You can't. So on the one hand, you're not passive because you're dynamic. You're still growing in heaven. But at the same time, remember, the godly soul, it's a piece of God. It's dynamic. It can't sit in a box. But at the same time, it's not active because it can't recreate itself. It can't, like us in this world, we can recreate ourselves. I can decide tomorrow that I want to do something that's never been done before. I can open a new business. I can start a new initiative. I can do things that were unthinkable. It's only impossible until somebody does it, right? So in this world, it's very exciting. You can do things that just totally reinvent yourself. And in heaven, they cannot do that. That's the challenge of heaven. You can't do that. You're stuck. This is the world where you can achieve. That's the world where you reap the benefits. You don't achieve anything. The only way that a person is able, the soul is able to get a boost in heaven is when sponsored by someone in this world. When a loved one, typically a child or anybody else, will do a mitzvah in their merit, that is what gives them a boost in the afterlife in heaven. Like the good joke goes about this evil guy, this real nasty fella. He goes up to heaven, he passes, and in the processing, they look at his file and they take 2 seconds. They say, you know what, you're going down to the basement. They send him down to the basement to hell. He's there for a couple hours, he's trying to get comfortable. An angel comes, And he takes him into heaven. The guy asks, well, to what do I deserve this honor? He says, well, you won't believe it. Your son was doing a shiva for you. When the rabbi walked in, he gave him a check for $18,000. Amazing. And that's why, because it's in your merit, you're going up to heaven. 3 days later, the same angel comes to him in heaven. He's getting comfortable, he's enjoying it. And he's taking him down to the basement again. He takes him to hell. The guy's like, 1 second, I thought my son wrote a check in my honor. So the angel looks at him and he says, the check bounced. Rob Berger, why does God want us to observe Yizkor alone, but does not allow us to say Kaddish without a minyan? That's a very interesting question. Very, very interesting question. Let me just look at the other comments a second. Wayne posed this here. Stephanie Stolman, does this mean that we all have to come back as Chabadniks or ultra-Orthodox so we fulfill all 613? I'm going to get to your point, Andy, in a second. And the answer is no, Stephanie. God knows what he's doing. I think the Chabadniks are the one that in a previous lifetime, maybe they were so evil that we have so many mitzvahs that we have to catch up on. I needed to come back as a Chabad rabbi to finish up all my mitzvahs because I needed to do a lot more than you need to do in this lifetime. Who knows? I don't know. But the point is that as once we understand the context of why we're here, where we're coming from, and where we're going, it's then that we can start putting things into perspective to be able to understand what's happening over here and what we need to be doing. So I don't know. Listen, Stephanie, your grandson's learning tremendous Torah. Tremendous. He's learning the book of Chinuch. Oh, it's amazing. Your son, your kids, it's amazing what they're doing. Stephanie, keep up the mitzvahs. Keep on going. Keep on trucking. Wayne posed, I'm glad that you're here. Just keep on going to your 613 over there. So to answer Rob's question, so why is it that Yizkor is done with alone, but Kaddish, we're not allowed to stay without a minyan? Yizkor is about the loved ones. Kaddish is about God. Let me explain this for a few moments because it's a really good question. Yizkor means to remember our loved ones. You can remember your loved ones on your own. You can write a check to tzedakah. You can do a mitzvah all by yourself, and you will thus be elevating the soul of your loved one, as I just explained. But saying Kaddish is one of the very special ways of elevating the soul of your loved one. Why? Because what you're doing is that you're publicly sanctifying the name of God. That's what Kaddish is. It is a public sanctification of the name of God. There's no mention of death. There's no mention of the deceased. You're literally shouting from the rooftops, Hashem hu ha-Elokim, God is the master of the universe, I believe. That's what you're saying in Kaddish. If you're doing that on your own, then whilst on the one hand you are making an affirmation of faith, as if you're saying Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, but at the same time, you're not doing that publicly. So obviously, Kaddish can only be said in a minyan because it's a public sanctification of the name of God. I hope that answers your question, Rob, because they're really good questions. Andy, also one form of energy transforms into another. That's how we get electricity from rotating coils of wires inside a generator magnet. Fascinating. And water flows from potential energy in a storage tank to kinetic energy in your water pipes. Awesome. Awesome examples there, Andy. Thank you for explaining that. Mickey, if you are loved, you never lose the person who loved you. You carry them with you all your life. Beautiful comment, Cookie. Absolutely. Yoni, Yehi Shmei Rabbah or Ein Sof need 10. Okay. So Yoni Herman, my buddy from Johannesburg. Yoni, I miss you, bro. So nice to see you, man. Wow, what a pleasure. So Yehi Shmei Rabbah is the response that we can only say when you have a quorum, when you have a minyan. May the name of God be sanctified and exalted and be made great. You are literally drawing upon yourself the infinite light of God, and that infinite light of God can only come where there is a quorum, where there is a minyan. So to be able to, this beautiful comment there from Yoni, the purpose of the Kaddish is not just to publicly sanctify the name of God, as I just explained. Yoni's saying it's even more. By publicly sanctifying the name of God, you're actually drawing infinite light upon yourself, but you can only draw that kind of infinite light when there is a minyan. And that's why, to answer Robert's question, you're only able to do that by having the Kaddish said publicly. Great comment there, Yoni. Thank you. I love how a friend of mine from Johannesburg is able to answer a question from one of my beloved members from Chicago, all because of this quarantine thing. It's amazing how we've literally moved to a whole new dimension. I would never dream of Yoni coming to my shul here in Palm Beach Gardens, but to think that Yoni can learn with me like this. is a gift of the new dimension of the virtual community, which is where our loved ones are. Our loved ones can do for us so much more now that they're in another world. When they're in this world, we can engage with them through a hug and a kiss, and it's beautiful. But now we can engage with them on so much of a deeper level. Just like a virtual Torah study can do so much in a regular study. Dean, when you do the mitzvah, does it have to be specifically in the loved one's name? Absolutely, I think so, Dean. When my grandparents passed away, my father would say, for like a whole year, he would say, Le'ila nishmas avi meiri. This is in the loving memory, in the elevation, sorry, not in loving memory. Le'ila nishmas means in the elevation of the soul of my father, my teacher. Everything my father did. This mitzvah in the elevation of the soul of my father, my teacher. Everything he did, he would say that. So you sponsor a kiddush. Sometimes it's called the Le'ilu Nishmas. When you sponsor a kiddush, sometimes it's called the Le'ilu Nishmas in elevation of the soul of. And that's what you'll notice in our shul kiddushes. Always, we do them in the elevation of the soul of someone specific. And we always get specific and we talk about them at the kiddush. Always talk about them at the kiddush. Let's see what's going on in YouTube comments. Okay. Not much. House of prayer is the meaning of bet tefillah. Of course. Good. Okay, back to our discussion over here. So, to sum up the conversation here of Yizkor, we're going through the what, the why, the when, the who, and the how. We're going through that. We've spoken about the what. We're in the middle of the why right now. Whilst the next world is more pleasurable for souls. That's where they belong, like a candle that's drawing upwards. That's where it comes from. It's beneath the heavenly throne. It's happiest there. It's more pleasurable. The soul desires to be there more. Nevertheless, the soul recognizes that this world is more important. This world is ground zero. Here, where we have spiritual darkness, here where we are able to overcome challenge and obstacle and temptation and seduction, and to prove our mettle with our good choices and expressions of our godly soul and thought, speech, and action over our animal soul, as is the theme of the book of Tanya, Chabad Hasidic Magnus Opus, our guide to life. It's only in this world that we can truly show our mettle. So this world is more important. It's only in this world that we can actually make a difference, where we can do a mitzvah, which we're going to talk about in the part of this class about Mashiach, about the purpose of a mitzvah, which is to draw divine awareness, not in heaven, but in this world. Because, by the way, just let me say this, that heaven, the afterlife, is a beautiful place, but it's not permanent. It's temporary. It's a waiting room, so that when Mashiach comes, those souls will all be released. Can you imagine the millions and millions and millions and millions of souls that will be released from heaven down to this world with the resurrection of the dead, with the coming of the Mashiach? Because this world is what it's all about. This world. When we do a mitzvah, we are uncovering godliness and holiness in this physical world, which is the ultimate purpose of creation. And that's where we will be reunited with our loved ones. We don't want to be reunited with them in heaven. We want to be reunited with them down here in this physical world. And that's what Mashiach is all about. That's this connection between Yizkor and the coming of Mashiach, the past and the future. It's all coming together as one. You can't do mitzvahs in heaven. That's why when you go to a cemetery, if you wear your tzitzis, your tzitzis strings outside of your pants, you're supposed to tuck them into your trousers when you go into a cemetery. Why? Because you're kind of making fun of the deceased by letting your tzitzis fly in the air. That's why you tuck them in. But when it comes to a cemetery, you acknowledge the fact that the deceased can no longer do mitzvahs. It's only when we do mitzvahs for them, that's when they're able to get that boost, when they're able to be elevated in heaven. Now, this, by the way, is the extraordinary power of children, because primarily it's the children that will elevate the souls of their parents, because just about anything that a child does is to the merit of the parent. The parent gave you life, brought you to this world, educated you, hopefully, and therefore everything that you do serves to automatically credit their account. And whatever mitzvah you do, especially in the first year of mourning, but especially on the yard site, and in general ever, whatever you do for a loved one, you're elevating their soul in heaven in a way that they cannot honor themselves, cannot elevate themselves. And that's why, in this world, you're supposed to honor your parents by doing what they want. During quarantine, you're supposed to go buy them stuff and bring things to their home and, do whatever you need to do. How you're honoring your parents in this world. But in the next world, the way to honor your parents is by going to shul, is by doing mitzvahs, is by learning Torah, is by every time you do a mitzvah, kosher, Shabbos candles, studying Torah, tzedakah, loving your fellow Jew, whatever mitzvah that you're doing, anytime you do a mitzvah, that's how you honor your parents. Think about that a moment. If you love your parents, then you'll send them a gift package. What kind of gift package? The kind of gift package that they can appreciate in this new dimension, in this new virtual reality. Now, it doesn't only have to be kids. It could be any loved ones. Anyone that loves the deceased. We don't dedicate a Torah here in our community, the community Torah that we have, the red one. It was dedicated in loving memory of all those who died in the Holocaust who were never remembered. Anyone who died in the Holocaust was never remembered. Dr. Ron here, our Chazan, in the mornings, he always makes sure to say Kaddish for the people who have no one to say Kaddish for them. And our Torah was dedicated in loving memory of anybody who had no one who was never able to be remembered. We're trying to be a catch-all to elevate all the souls who were never remembered. Anyone can dedicate, can elevate the soul of anyone else. Just surgical strike. Identify who it is that you want to be elevating and go for it. Elevate their souls. How exciting it is for us to be able to make a difference to their lives from such a distance, to be able to elevate them. It's really a beautiful thing. And now that we understand the context of the afterlife, we can finally come to the Yizkor to understand why the essence of the Yizkor prayer is the tzedakah pledge that we make. It's a very short prayer. And by the way, I encourage you to look at the handout. We posted it at the top of this page. You'll see there's Yizkor handout number 1. If you look at the handout, you can just click on the link on our on this page, on this YouTube page. You'll see a link to the Yizkor handout. And there's a link to also on the YouTube page, or both of them, you'll see the a handout over there, which actually has the Yizkor published for you in Hebrew and in English, so that you can literally go through it. And this is what you're going to go through tomorrow, God willing, on not tomorrow, I'm sorry, on Thursday, when you say the Yizkor. So let's take a look at this. I want to welcome my mother-in-law, my shviger. Welcome to our daily Torah study. We're talking about Yizkor over here. So the essence of the Yizkor, and you'll see it in the prayer of the Yizkor, is the pledge that we make to charity. I'm going to read it to you quickly. For one's father. May God remember the soul of one's father and teacher who has gone into his world, because without making a vow, I'll give to charity on his behalf. As a reward for this, may his soul be bound in the bond of life, together with the souls of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, and together with the other righteous men and women in the Garden of Eden. Now let us respond, amen. That's what's going on when you say the Yizkor. Again, you'll find the Yizkor itself printed in our free handout that we posted for you here on this YouTube page and on this Facebook page. Should be on top of the comments right next to the video. And just make sure to print it out so you have it ready for you. So why do we make a tzedakah pledge? What is this, some sort of a cheap solicitation that the rabbis are coming up with when the people are gathered in the synagogue? No, that's not what it's about. It's the ability to understand that we believe in the eternal life of our loved ones. And that that now they need us more than ever before, because they've moved virtual, like this video has moved our relationship from a person-to-person relationship to a virtual relationship. This is how we can connect with them. It's kind of like, when you're trying to Zoom with your parents. Can you hear me? I can't see you. And you're you're trying to explain to them how video conferencing works. And you're saying, Mom, I can see only your nose. I can see the fan on the roof. I can't see your face, Mom. Imagine if you could send them like a little assistant to help them do the video conference properly. That's what they need right now, right? Tzedakah is what they need right now, because when we do a mitzvah in this world, especially a mitzvah like tzedakah, which is a very tangible mitzvah. Other mitzvahs sometimes a little intangible. You make a pledge to study Torah. It could be a little intangible. But when you give tzedakah, you're making an actual difference in an actual person's life. By the way, if you know of anybody in our community who is going through difficult times right now, being laid off or challenging times, who needs financial assistance, please contact me privately. We'd like to help. Send me an email to rabbi@jewishgardens.com. That's rabbi@jewishgardens.com for private and confidential assistance to anybody who's in need, financial need. These are very difficult times, and we are all for one. and one for all. We're together not only in the good times, we're also together in the tough times. And we have made arrangements to help people are going through difficult times financially. If they're in genuine need, please let me know. You, yourself, don't be embarrassed. Say it's just between us. If you're in financial need, or if you know someone else in financial need in our community, please let me know. Send me an email, rabbi@jewishgardens.com. We'll take care of it privately and with dignity. When you do tzedakah, you're helping people in a very tangible way. And that tangibly elevates the souls of our loved ones up in heaven. And heaven knows that now more than ever, the people need charity. And the shuls and the Chabad houses most certainly need charity. Income has screeched to a halt. I can tell you here at the Chabad, it is difficult times right now. And any donation sent to the Chabad would be so very much more appreciated. They're always appreciated, but extra special appreciated at this very challenging time when it's really, really difficult. So please remember your shul as you do tzedakah, as you elevate the souls of your loved ones. And I want you to realize, how much tzedakah should you give? It all depends on how much you love your loved one. Is it a 14th cousin 7 times removed? But it's your mother, for heaven's sake. How much is your mother worth? It's a difficult question. Think about it. How much can you give? How much? It's not because of the recipient, it's because of the giver. It's because of who you're elevating. Think about the one that you're elevating when you're giving this tzedakah, because your tzedakah is actively elevating the soul of your loved one in a way that is tremendously meaningful to them and so much needed at this time by your loved one. Okay. Again, if you just joined us, we're learning a Yizkor DIY. We're going through do-it-yourself Yizkor. Why? Sorry, we're doing what, why, when, who, and how. We've spoken about the what and the why, and now we're moving on to the when, the who, and the how. When did Yizkor start? So according to our research, it seems like the Yizkor was instituted as a prayer during the Crusades, around the 13th century, in the aftermath of the tremendous suffering that the Jewish people experienced when the Crusaders swept through villages and towns and cities of Jewish people, massacring millions of Jewish people, and there were casualties that were uncountable. So they decided to institute a Yizkor prayer, which we actually say, by the way, every Shabbos, just before Musaf, just before the rabbi's sermon. It's just before Ashrei. We say, Avarachamim Shechem Mereimim. We ask God to remember all those whose blood was spilled and that their suffering should be avenged. That's really a predecessor of the Yizkor prayer. We still say it every single Shabbos. But at that time, when the Yizkor was instituted in the 13th century to remember the loved ones that were taken away so tragically, it was actually at one time instituted to be recited every single Shabbos. And slowly it evolved into this 4 times a year. Why do we do it 4 times a year? Because on the 3 major Jewish holidays, when we say it, the last day of Pesach, last day of Shavuos, and last day of Sukkot, those are the 3 times of the year that we read in the Torah the verse that says, Ish kematnat yado, each person shall bring to the temple as much as he can afford according to the blessing that your God has given you. When we read those words that give as much as you can afford, that's when we say the Yizkor prayer. Because Yizkor is essentially connected to the tzedakah pledge. We had a Jew here once who said to me, Rabbi, if you ever make a solicitation appeal at Yizkor again, I'm never coming back to shul. I said, listen, my friend, I'm sorry that you misunderstood the context of the appeal, but this is not about the charity receiving, the organization receiving the charity, as much as it is about the ability and the conduit and the tool to elevate the soul of your loved one. That's what Yizkor is about. It's not just sentimental Yizkor. It's actual. It's tangible. You're making a real difference in the soul of your loved one. You're giving a hug to your mother when you make a tzedakah pledge. And I will never take that away from the service. I unfortunately haven't seen this guy in a while, but I had to be clear with him. I had to say, listen, that's what Yizkor is about. You know, it's not about the appeal. It's not about the solicitation. The solicitation is the tool through which we can uplift and elevate the soul of our loved one. Now, of course, Yom Kippur, in addition to the 3 times that we read that verse, to give according to your ability, Yom Kippur, we also, is the 4th time we say the Yizkor, because that's when everybody's being remembered anyways, not only the living, but even the deceased. Everyone is being judged on Yom Kippur. So since they're being judged anyways, we're asking God to remember them favorably by giving extra merit to their souls on the day that they're being remembered and the day that they're being judged. Okay? So that's the when. Now let's go on to the who. When do we do the, who does the Yizkor? The Yizkor happens just before Musaf on the last day of Pesach. That's on Thursday. Normally it's preceded by the Rabbi's sermon. You're getting the Rabbi's sermon now instead of on Thursday. Every cloud comes with a silver lining. Mickey, that one's for you. And it's said by anybody who lost a parent. Even if you lost one parent, you recite the Yizkor. Certainly if you lost two parents, you recite the Yizkor. Now, what happens to the people that lost someone within the past year, within the past 12 months? So there's different customs. Our custom, Chabad custom, is that the person who lost a loved one within the past 12 months stays in the shul for the Yizkor, experiences the Yizkor, but they just don't read the Yizkor. So in a shul setting, you would stay there for Yizkor. You wouldn't leave like people whose parents are alive. They leave. So such a person would stay inside the shul and just experience Yizkor without saying anything. The reason for that is because they're being judged anyways. This entire year is a year of judgment, 12 months. The reason we say Kaddish is because a person can't be in purgatory for more than 12 months. Typically, it's 11 months. And that's why you say Kaddish for 11 months, to merit their soul with extra merit every day for the duration of their stay in purgatory, in Gehinnom. If they're there for the max allowed time, which is 11 months. They don't normally give visas for more than 11 months into purgatory. So that's the reason that you'll stay then shul, because they're being elevated anyways through the daily Kaddish. The reason that the people but certainly such a person would donate to elevate the soul of their loved one. They just don't need to verbalize the Yizkor. They just don't make the donation to elevate their soul during that year of remembering. And like Cookie mentioned earlier, our loved ones are always in our hearts. Certainly in the year after, there's no need to remember them because they're certainly very raw in our minds and in our practices of remembering a loved one in the 12 months that follow losing a parent. Now, why those whose parents are alive leave the shul? Various reasons. I heard a beautiful explanation once. It's in order to allow the room to vacate the seats, to allow the souls of the deceased to enter. Also, it's a concept of ayin hara. There's an evil eye. If your parents are alive and you stay in the shul, it could be an evil eye. So that's why it's very important to leave the shul during the recitation of the Yizkor if your parents are alive. Another reason would be that it's disrespectful to be serving as a spectator to people that are going through a very emotional service. Remember the loved ones if you're not feeling emotional. And a third reason is because on Yom Tov we're supposed to be happy. And saying Yizkor for your parents is a very emotionally charged experience. It's actually cathartic. So for people whose parents have passed, it's cathartic to remember their loved ones. And it's, in a sense, there's a sense of joy to that, knowing that you're making a difference and elevating their souls. Remember, with the proper context of the Yizkor, it's not just an emotional, sentimental remembering of what you had and what you lost. Yizkor is very much in the present tense. It's remembering them today and making a difference for them today and in the future. It's an ongoing relationship, which is actually very joyous. But those who are not saying Yizkor, whose parents are still alive, are only seeing the sadness from a distance. They're not experiencing the elevation of the soul of the loved one. And that's why they should leave, because that would be a mitigating factor for the joy that you have to be experiencing during Yizkor. During the Yom Tov. Okay, let's move on to the how. How do you say Yizkor? And I think that's our final question on the Yizkor component of our conversation of the Yizkor DIY class. Again, if you've just joined us, we are learning about the Yizkor DIY, how to do your Yizkor all on your own. We've explained the what, we've explained the why, we've explained the who, and we've explained the when. Now we're going to explain the how. We're going to explain the how right now. So how do you do it? First of all, on Thursday morning, you should recite the morning service. Say Shachris, daven Shachris. Something very beautiful about davening on your own these days. After the morning service, take a moment to meditate and reflect spiritually on what we've learned about today. To connect emotionally with your loved ones. Think about the spiritual connection. Then, once you've done that, remember, download and print the Yizkor handout that we've posted at the top of this Yizkor page. You can actually find it at jewishgardens.com/Yizkor handout. That's jewishgardens.com/Yizkor handout. You can print the Yizkor. Make sure you know which Yizkor you're saying for a father, for a mother, a male relative, a female relative, extended family. There's for martyrs. There's different kinds of Yizkor for an individual, for a group. There's different kinds of Yizkor over here, obviously. And you can pick the one that's right for you. Okay. Rob, I don't understand your comment on YouTube. I'm Ellie61. I don't know what that means. In any event, I'm moving back, Mickey, to Darabah. Good. I'm glad you know that you're being remembered when we're not doing a sermon. So, once you've meditated and emotionally connected, think about the loved one. You maybe sing a song, a melody that can inspire you to connect spiritually with your loved one. Then meditate about the emotional, the eternal component of your loved one's soul. Think about how they live forever. And meditate on the analogy of our shul, of our relationship, me and you right now, moving from a handshake relationship to a video conferencing relationship. Meditate on how you and your loved one did the same exact thing. You moved from a handshake, hugging, kissing relationship to a Yizkor conferencing relationship. We've moved virtual. Meditate on that metaphor. Think about how they've moved upstairs. They've moved to another country. They're alive and well. They're just in another form. And the way we connect with them right now is through Torah and mitzvahs, because they're living in a spiritual world of godliness and divine consciousness. And what they need is our mitzvahs right now. They don't need your milk and cookies. They don't need your photographs. They don't need you to take a walk in their favorite park. That's going to make you feel sentimental remembering their past, which is cute and nice. But if you want to make a difference with them now, in the here and now, you'll do that through Torah mitzvahs. And that's what I want you to meditate on before you do the Yizkor. Then, open the text and recite the Yizkor text carefully, mindfully. Read it word by word. Try to read it in English. See if you can read it in Hebrew. After you say the Yizkor, move down to the Kel Moli Rachamim prayer. To the Kel Moli Rachamim prayer. It's interesting. We actually have security that's texting me right now. He says he sees me in the shul, and he sees my car outside, and he's checking on me that I'm okay. So that's so nice of him to check on us during this time of where they're worried about maybe anti-Semitism. So we're having added security here. This is through the Jewish Federation. So thank you to the Jewish Federation, to Michael Hoffman, for sending us this extra security. And I'm just telling him that I'm good. So you'll see that if you go down on the Yizkor handouts, there's something called a Kel Moli Rachamim. So after the Yizkors, which end on page 5 and 6, you'll see that on page 7 there's a Kel Moli Rachamim, a memorial on page 7 and 8, a memorial for martyrs and for individuals, and you can add those various paragraphs for to mention the names of your loved ones as well. And then also there's the Avarachim prayer, which we do for all the countless martyrs, which I mentioned to you earlier. The people that were killed, and to avenge their blood. Then I want you to think about another moment to contemplate your present connection. Like I said earlier, contemplating your present connection to your loved ones through this Yizkor prayer. And make that mitzvah pledge, make that tzedakah pledge on Thursday when you say the yartzeit, when you say the Yizkor. And most importantly, after the Yontiv, make sure to pay the pledge. And you can do that pledge. You can pay it before the Yontiv. You can do it online right now. You can go to jewishgardens.com/donate, where you can actually make your mitzvah pledge right here, right now. Or you can do it after Yontiv. That's jewishgardens.com/donate. You can also call the office if you'd like to make that donation at 561-624-2223. That's 561-624-2223, where you can make your mitzvah pledge for tzedakah. Okay? Now, that happens on Thursday. This is when you do the Yizkor. Now, to answer Rob's question, when do you light the Yizkor candle? Rob, you do not light the Yizkor candle on Thursday. Do not light it on Thursday, because you're not allowed to light the Yizkor candle on Thursday. It would be a violation of Yontif to light the candle in memory of your loved one whose soul you're trying to elevate through the mitzvah of Yontif. When you light the Yizkor candle is tonight at candle lighting. You light the candle when you light your candles for Yontif. tonight before 7:27 p.m., you say the blessing Hadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov. When you make the candle lighting like you do before Shabbos with the Yom Tov blessing, you'll light a Yizkor candle. And either it's a 3-day candle or it's a 1-day candle, and you can actually have 2 of them, so that tomorrow, when it starts to burn out, you light a second Yizkor candle from a pre-existing flame. When you light your candles tomorrow night, after 8:20 something, let me see what time that is. Tomorrow night, when you light your candles after 8:21, you light them from a pre-existing flame, and therefore, when you light them from a pre-existing flame, you use the Yahrzeit candle from tonight that will still be burning tomorrow night to light your candles tomorrow night. And that's when you'll light a second Yizkor candle for the next 24 hours. So that way you'll have your Yizkor candle lit already from before Yom Tov. But you definitely don't want to be lighting your Yizkor candle on Yom Tov, because if you do light it on Yom Tov, you're violating the Yom Tov if you're lighting it from a fresh flame. And if you're lighting it from a pre-existing flame, you're good. But if you're lighting it from a fresh flame, then you're violating the Yom Tov, and thus counterproductive to the purpose of elevating the soul of your loved one. If you're violating the Yom Tov to elevate their soul, what's the point? So therefore, light it tonight and light it again tomorrow night from a pre-existing flame, and that way you've got it for the next 48 hours, and that's when you light the Yizkor candle. Okay? Hope that answers your question. Is there a prayer for the Yizkor candle? No. No, there is no prayer for the Yizkor candle. It's a meditation. You light it, then you meditate upon what we spoke about. Earlier. And that, my friends, is the purpose here in the Yizkor. We've answered our what, why, who, when, and how. And remember, it's all about remembering the current relationship with our parents, with our loved ones, to elevate their souls through mitzvahs right here, right now. And make sure to pay that pledge. You can do it online at jewishgardens.com/donate, or at 561-624-2223. When you act, that's 624-2223. By the way, 561-6 Chabad is a short way to remember our phone number, 6 Chabad. That's 561-6 Chabad. But the main thing is to actually remember that by doing the mitzvah, that's how you're connecting to your loved one. And this is something which the way you want your children to know as well. Will your children say Yizkor for you? Sorry to be a little macabre here, but will your children know how to say Yizkor for you? When they see how you observe Yizkor, when they see how you understand the Yizkor. Remember what Chabad is all about? Chabad is idea, understanding, and realization. It's logic. It's understanding the mitzvahs. That's what we've done to Yizkor. We've understood the context of Yizkor. And then when you understand the context of Yizkor, I want to encourage you to share this with your children, that they should understand the context of Yizkor, so that they too can elevate your soul noch 120 after 120 years. And with us, friends, do you have any questions? Anybody here got questions about where we stand, what's going on over here? Have I said anything which you found controversial, surprising, alarming, comforting, perhaps? Please give me your comments there. Mickey is saying Cookie has a yahrzeit on Friday. When does she light that candle? So whenever you have a yahrzeit, you always want to light the night before, for the 24 hours, right? So there, in the case of Cookie, she would want to light after nightfall on Thursday night. Now, nightfall on Thursday night is at 8:21 p.m. The holiday ends at 8:21 p.m., and therefore Cookie should be lighting her yahrzeit for Friday on Thursday night after dark. Mickey, how or do are 2 separate questions. How or do? How or do are 2 separate questions. I don't understand what you're saying, Mickey. Sorry. How or do? I'm sorry, Mickey. I don't understand. You got to explain what you mean. Be a little more specific. Any other questions, folks, before I wrap up with the final section of this class, which is actually very, very exciting component of this class, and that is the last part of Pesach, which we spoke about at the very beginning of this class, which is celebrating the coming of Mashiach, and why we have a Mashiach meal in the last hours of Thursday, in the last hours of Pesach, the Mashiach meal, which I want to talk to you about right now. Just spending a few minutes talking about the coming of Mashiach, my friends. It's happening. Mashiach is coming. Let's be ready. We have to understand. Yeah, we have to understand what this is all about. I appreciate my mother-in-law. She says, thank you for always explaining so eloquently. Thank you, Shviger. Very, very nice. Appreciate it. Mickey saying, for children saying Yizkor. How or do? Will they say Kaddish? Will they say Yizkor for us? And how? Mick, I'm so sorry. I'm not getting for children saying Yizkor. I don't understand, Mickey. David Rosen, have a wonderful Yom Tov, very inspiring. Andy Siegelstein, timing of pledge and fulfillment. First pledge during Yizkor, then fulfill on Friday with actual donation. Correct. Gotcha. Now, Mickey, again, I'm sorry, you're writing in half sentences. I'm not understanding what you're saying, Mick. So if you could please write in full sentences. I think I missed the first half of your sentence somehow. Anyways, moving on here. Moving on with the final part of Pesach, which is about the coming of Mashiach. Friends, this is what it's all about. Is your Judaism all about the past? Or do you have the courage to reinvent your Yiddishkeit, to take it into the future? The Rebbe told us how important it is for us to be aware of what it is, what's happening, of what's going to be happening when Mashiach comes. And therefore, we have to learn about what this era is all about. That's why we have the meal of Mashiach at the end of Pesach. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. What is Mashiach all about? I'm curious to know, friends. Does Mashiach freak you out? Are you nervous about Mashiach? Anybody here uncomfortable with the concept of Mashiach? Please tell me. Rob Berger, are you okay with Mashiach? Bob Wertheimer, I need to know how you feel about it. I'd like to know how Gail Wertheimer feels about this, about Mashiach coming. I'm very curious to know. Gail Wertheimer, how do you feel about Mashiach coming? Please post a comment about how you feel. It's going to take me about 20 minutes or so to finish this last part of the class. The coming of Mashiach. I'd like to know how you feel about it, Rob. So just before I do that, Mickey, do the children know how to say Yizkor is one question, and will they say Yizkor is another? Now I get it. And that's why we have to lead by example. We have to show them. We have to teach them. Yashikar from the back of the bus says, Warren, good. And I need another 20 minutes or so, friends, to finish up here this lesson about the coming of Mashiach. And here goes nothing. I'm starting now. Okay, so generally speaking, people will say that it is hard to relate to the coming of Mashiach because it's like a little fuzzy, it's a little vague, we don't know what's going on, we're sort of pretty comfortable in the world that we live in, and this notion of having a new reality is a little uncomfortable to us. But I have to tell you that no one would have dreamed that our lives would look the way they are 3 months ago or 2 months ago. In February, we wouldn't have dreamed that our lives would look like this in April, the way we're living right now. Yet the world has changed in a moment, in the blink of an eye. And just as that happened in the blink of an eye, so too, my friends, the world, the way we know it, the entire world, the way we know it, will be enhanced in the most beautiful way with the coming of Mashiach. It can change, it has changed, and it will change. Rob says, I want Mashiach now. Gail is in the here and now. Is Mashiach coming now? Absolutely. Marty wants to know, who is he? Marty, before I tell you who he is, I want to tell you what Mashiach is all about so we can understand what this era is about. And so Gail's comment is very interesting. Gail's in the here and now. It's very interesting. Yes, Mashiach is coming now. This is happening now. Let me just talk about this a little bit and explain what's going on so we get the right context. You know, there's a story of Chassidim, of the Alter Rebbe. Reb Hillel Paritcher was a famous chassid. He was there with the chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, and they were farbringing all night. They were singing and learning and discussing and engaging in the way of chassidim. They were doing a farbringing, and it went all night long. And they ran out of vodka at some point, out of alcohol, out of l'chaims. So at one point, the host or somebody said, "Go down to the cellar. You can get another bottle." Guy goes down to the cellar, and he cries out. He says, "It's dark in here. It's dark. I can't see." So someone else said to him, "Stick around a little bit." And you'll and your eyes will get used to it. Your eyes will get used to the darkness. At that moment, Reb Hillel, turning to the other Hasidim, he says, that's the problem. That sums up our problem. We get used to the darkness and we become comfortable with it. We've been living in the state of darkness for like 3,500 years. Once the temple was destroyed, 1,900 years ago, 1,900 and change, by the Romans, once our temple was destroyed and divinity was like concealed from us, it was apparent in the temple, we've grown accustomed to living in the dark. And for us, the notion of being able to having the lights turned on again is like scary. But once we realize that we're living in the dark, that's when we're able to realize, hey, it's actually good times ahead. We're actually going to go back into the light and we have nothing to be afraid of. When life was hard, it was easier to relate to the Mashiach. You know, when we were suffering, when we were persecuted, when we were tortured, when we had no money, it was a little bit easier to relate to the era of Mashiach. Today, life is good, and therefore we might not want Mashiach so much. You know, I'm comfortable with my 3 homes and my 4 cars and my, annual cruises and vacation plans. Why would I want Mashiach? But you know, when you really think about it, life isn't actually that amazing. with our coronavirus going on right now and the anti-Semitism, and Israel problems, life isn't actually that amazing. We want Mashiach not only to escape our problems, however, we want Mashiach for the extraordinary goodness, the enlightenment that the world will experience at that time, to embrace enlightenment. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Not only about running away from our problems, it's about turning on the lights and being able to truly be present in the wonders of our existence and the wonders and the kindnesses that God shares with us by having created us. So Rob says, I think he's on his way. Large locust outbreak in Africa at the same time as coronavirus, tornadoes and hailstorms in the USA. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mashiach is absolutely coming. Biblical prophecies are absolutely coming true. I've spoken about them many times, about the wings of eagles, a prophecy of Isaiah, which is certainly airplanes today. When you think of the airplanes that are parked in some of the airports in the world, they're lined up thousands and thousands and thousands of airplanes. Can you think of them as eagles that are ready to take us back to the promised land? Think about that for a moment, about all these airplanes. Thousands of airplanes that are down jets, that are not flying. They're all just parked back to back, whatever, head to toe. And they're waiting to literally be ready at a moment's call to pick us up and take us all to the Holy Land. Can you imagine how that would be the fulfillment of a biblical prophecy that sounded ridiculous up until 100 years ago, till the Wright brothers, right, invented air flight, right? We thought that flying on the wings of eagles would be impossible. And all these other biblical prophecies of the resurrection of the dead, cloning, healing illnesses, immortal life, how far is that from, as scientists keep on extending life? Who knows? We're getting close. So that's the reason why the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, established the feast of Mashiach, the meal of Mashiach, for us to have in the last hours of Pesach, which is, remember, the first days of Pesach commemorate the Exodus from Egypt back then. The last days of Pesach, the last 2 days, commemorate the Exodus from this current exile with the coming of Mashiach. And the last few hours, we have the meal of Mashiach for us to be able to meditate and contemplate and actually ingest this belief and to relate to it better. The way we do it is by eating matzah. We wash our hands and we eat matzah in the last few hours, and we talk about Mashiach. It was the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, about 100 years ago in 1906, who added to this custom of the Baal Shem Tov to also have 4 cups of wine. We drink 4 cups of wine at the meal of Mashiach, just like we had 4 cups of wine at the Exodus from Egypt, so too 4 cups of wine with the Exodus of this current exile. Those 4 cups represent the 4 promises that God promised us to take us out of this exile, out of that exile in Egypt. So too, He promised to take us out of this exile as promised to us in the Torah, and we actually drink that. For the DIY of the Passover, of the Feast of Mashiach, all you need is matzah, wine, 4 cups of wine, and good energy. When do you do it? Is in the last hour or 2 of Pesach, of Thursday. So let's say Thursday, 7 p.m. would probably be a good time. Maybe 6:30 p.m. would be a good time to start your Passover Seder. Who do you have? Whoever's there. If it's just you, then it's just you and Hashem. You're never alone. A Jew is never alone. Just have privately with Hashem. I was talking to my grandfather the other day, Hannah's grandfather, about his Passover Seder. He told me it was a private audience between me and God. He's not going anywhere with this coronavirus outbreak. He's in his 80s and he should be gesund and strong, and he's not going out anywhere. He just had a private Seder with God. The way you do it is you wash your hands 3 times on the right and 3 times on the left with a cup that covers your entire hand at one time. 3 on the right, 3 on the left. You make the blessing, Al Asher Kedeshanu Utzatav Tzivanu Al Netilat Yadayim. And then when your hands are dry, you say the blessing, Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, you eat the matzah. And then you read about the redemption in the handouts that we'd like you to print out. They're posted here in Facebook, on Facebook and on YouTube. You'll find the handouts at the top of the page under Pesach handout. You can also find those printouts. The printouts will also be found on our website at jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout. That's jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout. A comment from Elaine. Important to be able to differentiate our vision from that of the Christians and Muslims. Messiah Omari. Very, very important. The concept of belief in the Mashiach, as we're about to learn, is very, very, very different to the Christian or Muslim belief in Mashiach. This is not about Judgment Day. It's not about torture and suffering and revenge. It's about enlightenment. It's about higher consciousness. That is what's going on. Imagine your marriage. You know, you have sometimes moments in your marriage that are unbelievable. Your relationship is so beautiful. You're connected. It's deep. It's perfect. You're relating to each other. You're deeply in love and it's intimate. And then you have moments that are downright horrible. Right now, we're in exile. Our relationship with God is horrible. When Mashiach comes, the lights turn on. That's when we experience intimacy and purity and love and connection and higher consciousness with God. That's what it's about. Anything else is a Christian concept of Mashiach. Now, when Marty tells me the Gog and Magog, I've said this before, that there's actually a very interesting commentary about, I think it was 100 or 200 years ago, that says that Gog and Magog, which is a war, allegedly, in the book of Yechezkel is not mentioned at all as a war whatsoever. It's actually going to be a plague that will spread across the world. And that will be the precursor to the coming of Mashiach. So the concept of Mashiach, nobody knows exactly what it's going to be, but we are going to look at these texts together right now for a few minutes, about 20 minutes or so, to be able to understand what Mashiach is all about and how we can look forward to have a meaningful meal of Mashiach on the last hours of Thursday, last hours of Pesach, about 6:30 p.m. on Thursday. I would like to welcome Mark Gottlieb. Welcome, Mark. Good to have you with us, and Daniel Klein as well. I can't really tell who's on YouTube, but I can see on anyone who comments, so that's good. Any comments or questions, guys, please let me know. Now, when you washed your hands and you ate the matzah, you made a blessing, you're sitting by yourself with your wife, we're talking about these things. I'd like you to print out this handout so you can actually read through it at your meal of Mashiach. And it's going to be very, very meaningful. I'm going to go through those readings right now with a few commentary, and that'll be it. So read about the redemption in the handout that we printed for you. It's at jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout, or you'll find it at the side of this YouTube page or at the side of this Facebook page. Okay. Now, what you do is after you started the reading, I'd like you to intersperse your reading of the biblical and commentaries about the coming of Mashiach and the era of Mashiach with the 4 cups of wine. So before you read your first cup, before you drink your first cup of wine, I'd like you to make a blessing, Borei Pri Agafen, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei Pri Agafen, which means blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who created the fruits of the vine. If you want to know the meaning of that blessing, I encourage you highly to go to study this meditation and prayer with me. Go to youtube.com/Jewish Garden. And at the top of the page, you'll see a playlist. You click on meditation and prayer. There's about 10 lessons, which will help you read, understand, and meditate on this blessing. That's meditation and prayer. Go to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. Click at the top of the page where it says playlist, and you'll see the playlist called meditation and prayer. Go through those classes and you'll be able to truly meditate on this beautiful blessing of Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Borei Pri Hagafen. And you do that, you drink the first cup and you intersperse your 4 cups. You only make one blessing through the 4 cups, one blessing for all 4 cups. And when you do that, you just break up the 4 cups with the various readings that we're going to go through right now. Try to sing something, maybe a song relating to the coming of Mashiach, and make it more meaningful. And now we're going to take a look at these 6 texts, which are all about the coming of Mashiach. Just give me a quick second. I'm plugging in my computer. I'm down to almost nothing. Okay, we got power. Okay. Welcome to our cousin, Shmaya Futafas. Nice to see you from New York. Hope life is well in New York and that you're being very safe in that state. Okay, good. So back to Mashiach. Let's take a look at this first text again. If you haven't seen it yet, you can just click on the side of our Facebook page or YouTube page where you'll see the Pesach handout, or you can just go to jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout, where Ashley has prepared it for us, as she always does, everything prepared so nicely. Text number 1 is from Isaiah 11, verses 6 through 13. We actually read this on the last day of Pesach, very appropriate. We read it in the Haftarah. And a wolf shall lie with a lamb, and a leopard shall lie with a young goat. That's a reference to, a metaphor to the peace that will reign in the coming of Mashiach. Can you imagine peace with Iran? Can you imagine Iran offering to help the Jews? And can you imagine North Korea? Can you imagine the Democrats and the Republicans working together to make the world a better place and to bring more purpose and engagement with everything. It'll be so amazing. That's the wolf lying with the lamb. The land shall be full of knowledge of the Lord as water covers the seabed. That's about destroying the world. You see, the word world in Hebrew is olam. Olam, and we've learned about this in the meditation and prayer classes, which I just spoke about. Olam means world, but it also means concealment. He'elem. This is a world of darkness. When Mashiach comes, the lights go on and we're able to experience godliness all around us. Just like in the dark ages, they were living in the dark ages. They didn't have a clue. They thought that the Jews caused the Black Plague because the Jews had poisoned the water because much fewer Jews had died than anybody else. What they didn't know is that the Jews are washing their hands like we always do before mitzvahs. When we wake up in the morning, after we go to the bathroom, before we eat, we wash our hands, and therefore we were cleaning ourselves from the germs. In the dark ages, they didn't know about germs. Today, we know about germs, but we don't know about godliness. A couple hundred years ago, they didn't know about DNA. They didn't know about electricity. They lived in the dark ages. And today, we are in the dark ages, spiritually speaking, of divine energy. And that's what's going to be enlightened when Mashiach comes. It will be the land shall be full of the knowledge of God as water covers the seabed. By the way, the word in Hebrew, if you've studied the meditation and prayer class with me, the world will be filled with the knowledge of Havaya. It's not just the knowledge of God, of Elohim. It's the knowledge of Havaya. It's God's unlimited and infinite light. That is the light that's going to be revealed. Because right now we have the light of Elohim, which is God's concealment. What we don't have is the light of Havaya, which is God's infinite energy. Again, if you haven't done so yet, you can experience Jewish meditation and prayer by going through the 10 classes on youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, clicking on playlist at the top of the page and just playing the classes on meditation and prayer. He shall gather the lost of Israel and the scattered ones of Judah. He shall gather from the four corners of the earth. This is a prophecy of ingathering. In other places it says, he will gather the exiles of Assyria and of Egypt. Now Assyria in Hebrew also means wealthy, ashir. And Egypt also means tight. What this means is that both the rich and the poor will be inspired to the Mashiach revolution. Not only the poor, who obviously need a change, but even the rich will appreciate the greatness, the majesty of this era of the coming of Mashiach. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, nor shall Judah vex Ephraim. There will be tremendous peace, Jewish unity, which is unprecedented. We spoke about that earlier. Let's take a look at the next text, which is from Maimonides. Introduction to the Mishnah Sanhedrin. Text number 2. Again, if you don't have this handout, you'll find it at jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout. And you can also see it at the side of the YouTube or Facebook page. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. If you think I'm like crazy, if you think I'm saying stuff that's just out of this world, let me know. I'd love to engage with you. I'd love to argue with you. You know that I'd love to argue. Okay, text number 2 from Maimonides. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah, even though he may tarry, nonetheless I await his coming every day. This is the 12th of 13 fundamental principles of our faith. If you think, or if any rabbi ever told you that the Jews don't believe in the coming of Mashiach, that rabbi doesn't know what they're talking about. Mashiach is a fundamental principle in Judaism. It's in the Bible. It's all over the oral Torah, everywhere. And in fact, on the crossing of the Red Sea, which is the reading of the 7th day of Passover, that's tomorrow, which is what we're celebrating at the end of Pesach. We spoke about that at the beginning of this class. The song of the sea that the Jewish people sang was Az Yashir Moshe Bnei Yisrael at Teshira Zot. And then Moses and the Jewish people will sing the song. Then Moses and the Jewish people will sing the song. It's deliberately in the future tense because it is a prophecy about the resurrection of Moses and all the Jewish people. When Mashiach will come, they'll sing this song. It's not only a commandment for us to believe in the coming of Mashiach, we're actually commanded to eagerly anticipate the coming of Mashiach. Now listen to this. When a person dies, the Talmud tells us that there are 3 questions that every person is asked. 3 questions every person is asked when he dies. I'm trying to remember them off the cuff right now. Here they are, in no particular order. Kavata itim la Torah. Can you imagine? Are you ready for these 3 questions? You know, we Americans, we love to plan ahead. We love to know where we're going from here. Where do we go from here? You go on vacation. You got to know how to dress and how to behave and the customs and what do I need. Here's what you need for the next world, okay? 3 things they're going to ask you. Kavata itim la Torah. Did you establish permanent fixed times to study Torah. Number one, you can do this every morning with us, every weekday morning when it's not Yontif. We'll be resuming on Friday again after Yontif. Did you establish fixed times for Torah study? That's one question, number one. Number two, we want to know, they want to know in heaven, if Tzipita Lishuata, did you eagerly anticipate the redemption? Tzipita Lishuata, did you eagerly anticipate the redemption? The third question is, Nasata v'natata be'emuna, did you do business faithfully, or were you a cheat in business? Good morning, Judy Schuster. Welcome to our Torah study. Were you a cheat in business, or were you honest in business? Those three questions. So the question really is that we asked when we died, one of the first three questions, did you eagerly anticipate the redemption? And that's why it's so important to experience the meal of Mashiach at the last days, in the last hours of Pesach on Thursday afternoon, about 6:30, to make sure that we can have our matzah and our 4 cups of wine and our printout at jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout. You know, there's a beautiful song on this Maimonides. Ani mamina, ani mamina, ani mamina. That's a haunting melody. With perfect faith and the coming of Mashiach. And that's a haunting melody. I'm not exactly the cantor, and you can see why. But this song was actually composed by a Mujitzer Chassid. His name was Azriel David Fastag. It was in 1942. He was on the train to Treblinka, on the cattle cart to Treblinka. Can you imagine? This guy was blessed with a beautiful voice. He realized that he was going to his death. I guess when they saw everybody was packed into the cattle cars and the Nazis were shooting anybody who was climbing out the windows, he composed the song Ani Mamin on the train to Treblinka, to the gas chambers. And once he finished composing the song, he declared in a moving declaration. He said, "Whoever will promise me to take this tune to my mentor, to my Rebbe, to the Mujitzer Rebbe, who is now living in New York, I promise him I will pay him with half of my portion in heaven." That's how I will pay that person. 2 young boys were on the train that time. They promised that they would try. They both jumped out the train at the window. They took this melody with them. They memorized the tune. At least one of them made it to Israel, and he sent the musical notes to the Mujitzer Rebbe in New York. The Rebbe was so deeply moved. The Mujitzer Rebbe was so deeply moved by the melody and the story of its compositions, and he told his followers, with this tune, they went to the gas chambers, and with this tune, we will march to greet Mashiach. Perhaps you can recount the story and with anybody around your Mashiach Seder, and you could sing the song, Ani Mami, Ani Mami. Maybe one of our listeners can post a link to the song. I'm sure you can find it online. If you just Google like jewishgardens.com, Ani Ma'amin song, I'm sure you'll find it. And if you could just post it to our comments here, that would be really nice so we can give it to our listeners as well. Okay, so moving along. We're moving on to the next text. Text number 3 is a little more meditative. It's basically a text that tells us, I'm not going to read this one inside. It's a little longer. This one is from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe explains that the word for exile and the word for redemption is exactly the same word with one difference. It's only got an aleph. The word for exile is gola. The word for redemption is geula. It's the same exact word with just an aleph. If you add an aleph, that's what changes it. How could it be that exile and redemption is the same exact word? How is it even possible? The way the Rebbe explains it is that the aleph represents God. The aleph represents God. And if you reveal God within the world the way we know it, that's when Mashiach comes. That is Mashiach. So Mashiach is not about changing the world the way we know it. It's about revealing the world, revealing the truth of the world the way we know it. So if you just go to the middle of that text number 3, it says, all of the positive elements that are part of our current reality will remain intact when the redemption comes. Only their exilic condition will be eliminated. The concealment of each entity's true inner nature will be removed, along with the enslavement to its worldly and material nature that results from that concealment. As Maimonides rules, do not presume that in the era of redemption, any facet of the world's nature will change. Rather, the world will continue according to its pattern. It will just be like you're in your house, but the lights are off. Imagine me living in the dark. Imagine you're living in the dark in your house for the past 50 years. And then one day, somebody comes in and turns on the lights. Like you're living in without electricity. And then one day, somebody turns on the lights. You're like, oh my God, that's amazing. I love it. It's my same house, but now I have the lights on. It's incredible. That's Mashiach. It's like somebody turning the lights on in your house, the world the way we know it. There'll be shopping, and there'll still be Cancun, and there'll still be Hawaii, and there'll still be beautiful places, and there'll still be the White House and Israel and the EU. Everything will be beautiful. The world the way we know it, but there won't be fighting. There won't be evil. There won't be ego. There won't be nastiness. There won't even be death, by the way. Very interesting, right? In Psalms 126, King David says, that when Mashiach comes, we will look back at our days today as if we were dreaming. You know, when you're in a dream, you think that it's real. During the dream, you think it's real. But when you wake up, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that was real. That's what happens when Mashiach comes. We'll look back, we're like, I can't believe I thought that life now was real. We were living in the darkness. Like, seriously? We thought that was good. We were worried about the redemption. That's so weird. That's what King David says. We will have been like dreamers. That's the preamble to the grace after meals. When we say Shira Ma'alos, we'll say Az Hayinu Kecholmim. Then we will have been like dreamers. You know, this world looks like a jungle. We call it a jungle, but really it's a beautifully, perfectly manicured garden. It's God's garden. This is the opening words of the Rebbe when the Rebbe accepted the mantle of leadership in 1951. The Rebbe said, Bossi Lagani Achaisikali, I've come to my garden, my sister, my bride, quoting King Solomon in the Song of Songs as he speaks about God coming to this world. This world is a garden. It looks like a jungle, but really it's a garden. The reason it looks like a jungle is because you're stuck in the weeds. Get out of the weeds and see the beauty of the garden around you. It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. We're just literally got our heads stuck in a hole on the ground, and we think that's the reality. And we've been there for so long, we're like, this is the real world. But if you literally lift your head out and you look around you, you'll see the beauty of the world around you. You'll see godliness apparent all around you. It's about waking up to the beauty outside of our hole. And that's why I want to tell you, there's nothing to fear about the coming of Mashiach. It's not a change to our world. It's just revealing the inherent beauty of our world. We got just two more texts to quickly review here before we finish. The next one, number 4, is from the Alter Rebbe from Tanya, chapter 37. The culminating, again, if you don't have the text, it's at jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout. You'll find it there. This culminating fulfillment of the Messianic era, says the Alter Rebbe, which will consist of the revelation of God's infinite light in this material world, depends on our actions in exile. By virtue of performing the mitzvahs, a person suffuses God's infinite light from above downward to be clothed in the physical presence of the world. Fascinating what this is saying. First of all, in beautiful words, Alter Rebbe is telling us what Mashiach is about. It's not just an end to anti-Semitism. He's telling us it's about the revelation of God's infinite light in this physical world. But so beautifully, he tells us that it depends on our actions. Specifically, so we make it happen. We actually bring Mashiach by our actions. But specifically as through a mitzvah. The word mitzvah means to connect. We connect with God, but also the object that we do the mitzvah with connects with God as well. So other religions make fun of Judaism. They say that Judaism is a very unspiritual religion. Because, you know, they're into fasting, they're into abstinence. The Muslims don't drink alcohol. The Muslims fast for 30 days during Ramadan. The Christian priests don't have sexual relations. They don't get married. But Jews, it's our first mitzvah to get married. We eat, boy, do we eat and drink. We never fast for 30 days, ever. We're a very physical religion because the purpose of Yiddishkeit is to infuse holiness, not there, but here, to bring holiness down to this physical world. That's what we're trying to do. Good morning, Dan Gicher. Welcome to our Torah class today. That's what we're trying to do. We're bringing holiness down to this world. So when we do a mitzvah, not only are we bringing God God's infinity upon us. We're bringing God's infinity into that physical object. So when you go to Cancun and you do a mitzvah, you're bringing God's infinity into Cancun or into Vancouver or into Johannesburg. You're doing that mitzvah there, and wherever you are, you're bringing godliness to a place that it never was before. This concept is manifest in the blessing that we make. Again, if you'd like to understand the meaning of this concept, take a look at youtube.com/Jewish Gardens and go to the playlist at the top of the page and find the playlist called Meditation and Prayer. We explain how every blessing that we make is Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch Atah Havai Elokeinu. We say Havai Elokeinu means Hashem our God. It means God's infinity is drawn down to this physical world. That's what we're doing every single time you're doing a mitzvah. And this is the true meaning of Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam doesn't just mean helping old ladies cross the street and marching with Martin Luther King. Tikkun Olam really means fixing the world, making the world come to its ultimate purpose, which is true peace, lasting peace, true purpose, which is the revelation of godliness inside of this world, which is about us and God having a deep and intimate relationship, just like you and your wife or you and your husband, you and your spouse have a loving, intimate relationship. Imagine you haven't seen your wife, your spouse for 8 months. You're like in exile from each other. And then when you come together, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So every time you write a letter to each other, every time you send a text message, every time you send a gift, every time you engage, you're connecting like a mitzvah, connecting until eventually you become close enough to become one. That's what's happening when Mashiach comes. Our final text here for Mashiach meal, which is the last hours of Thursday of Pesach, from Maimonides this time, the very end of his magnus opus, Mishnah Torah, which is the encyclopedia of the entire Torah, the most brilliant work. We should always view ourselves as equally balanced with merits and faults. Actually, this quote is not from the end of the Mishnah Torah. It's actually near the. We should always view ourselves as equally balanced with merits and faults, and view the world too as equally balanced with merits and faults. Therefore, if I perform but one mitzvah, I can tip the balance, my own balance and the entire world's balance, and effect personal and global deliverance and salvation. Friends, this is not all or nothing. One more mitzvah will make all the difference. When CNN came to interview the Rebbe, I think it was his 70th birthday, maybe his 80th birthday, I don't remember. Probably his 80th, maybe, I think it was his 90th birthday. They came by dollars, CNN, and they asked the Rebbe for a comment, and the Rebbe said, bring Mashiach through a random act of goodness and kindness. Do random acts of goodness and kindness. One more mitzvah, random unconditional love. Be kind. Do a mitzvah. Study a little Torah. Light that Shabbos candle. Do a mitzvah. Push yourself one step further. When you do that, you will be experiencing extraordinary blessing, tipping yourself and the entire world to the coming of Mashiach. It's in our hands. It depends on us. You know how we look at the Holocaust and we say, why didn't they do anything about it? You know, and in the future, they'll look at us in coronavirus and they'll say, why weren't we being careful? Why were we not quarantining when they told us to quarantine? When Mashiach comes, they'll look back at us and they'll say, why didn't we do anything? Our grandchildren are going to ask us, Zaidi and Bubby, why didn't you do something more to bring the world to the ultimate purpose, to the ultimate perfection? It was in your hands. Why didn't you act quicker? Friends, that's what the meal of Mashiach is about at the end of Thursday. Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Take out your matzah. Prepare yourself 4 cups of wine. Experience the meal of Mashiach. To be able to truly experience liberation. Liberation not only from our technical problems, from our temporary problems, but a permanent liberation from all of our headaches. With the coming of the Mashiach and the era of enlightenment, the meal of Mashiach is a time to reflect on this new perception of reality. Friends, tell me if you have any questions or comments before we sign off over here, because that's pretty much a wrap from a beautiful conversation here. If you have any questions or comments, please do comment. Let me know. Good morning, Ira Jacobson. Great to have you with us. Are you okay with this concept of Mashiach? Hi, what do you think, guys? Mark, Ira Jacobson, what do you think? Are you okay with the coming of Mashiach? Are you comfortable with that? I'm not sure who else is still there with us. I see we've got quite a crowd here on YouTube and Facebook, which is terrific. But if you're there, folks, give me a comment here. What do you think about this coming of Mashiach? Are you able to celebrate this meal of Mashiach with me? I'll be home with my kids, and I hope that you'll be home with whoever's with you in your home to be able to experience Mashiach. Let's make this real. Let's make this year the year Let's not talk about next year in Jerusalem. Let's talk about this year in Jerusalem. Let's make it a reality. Let's open our eyes. Enough already, guys. We've been suffering enough. Like Rob Berger said earlier, he said a beautiful comment. I want Mashiach now. He's done. He's ready. He's just ready. My Shviger, whoa, Sudas Mashiach with new inspiration. Good, Shviger. Thank you so much. I appreciate your appreciating. Thank you. I hope that our members, our community members, will be able to actually experience the coming of Mashiach. And Shviger, I hope that you also, at your Sudas Mashiach, you'll be doing it alone with my Shver, with your husband. Print out this handout. Take out, jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout. Print it out and read through it at your Mashiach meal to be able to talk about what this Mashiach meal is all about. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me know how it goes. Marty is there, shalom. And Andy says, l'chaim, I'll celebrate this meal with Judy. Thank you, Marty. There you go. Thumbs up. That's what I wanted to hear, Marty. You are the man. And boy, do I miss you. But God willing, soon we will all be reunited. And I see from Haifa, Kobe is still there. Amazing, Kobe. Thank you, Rabbi. It's wonderful to be part of the community like I didn't leave a year ago. You should continue after the corona and let something good come from the corona. I love you guys. Kobe from Haifa, we miss you, my friends, and so grateful that you're still there with us. Comments are coming in. Graciela, thank you, Rabbi. Mashiach now. Daniel, I will celebrate as well. Daniel, you are the man, guys. Don't forget to please print this printout, jewishgardens.com/Pesach handout, so that you will have what to read and discuss at your Mashiach meal. David Rosen, is there anything we need to prepare for the Mashiach so we're so close, or do we just wait? David, that's a really great question. What do we need to prepare? I love that question. Beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. What do we need to prepare? That's what we have to talk about at the Mashiach meal. What do we have to prepare? Are we ready? Well, I think some people, David, have actually packed a suitcase under their bed. Like you when your wife's about to give birth and you have to have like a bag ready to go, and when the time comes, you gotta go. I've never actually had a bag. 8 kids later, we've never actually had a bag because Hannah is so chilled out. Thank God she doesn't stress on these things. So I'm blessed. But maybe have a bag. The Rabbi spoke about having a tambourine. The ladies are going to celebrate with tambourines. Have a tambourine ready to welcome Mashiach. There's a story about a guy who was teaching people about Mashiach, and the people he was talking to, they said to him, "You don't believe in Mashiach." And he said, "Why? What do you mean? Why did you think I believe in Mashiach? Where's your umbrella? If you really believed in Mashiach, you would have had an umbrella, because if he can come now, like you think, then why didn't you carry an umbrella?" Interesting perspective, right? So David, that's a good question. I don't really know. What do we need to prepare? I'm actually going to ask that question at my meal of Mashiach, David. I just want you to know. I'm going to sit there with my wife and kids. If Mashiach hasn't come yet, I'm going to ask them this question. What do we need to experience Mashiach? That's going to be a fascinating conversation, and I will see where that goes. Ed Hockman, I did that already. Print out. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Stuart Levitt. Alina and I enjoyed your beautiful presentation. Thank you so, so very much for your beautiful comments. Friends, it's been real. I want to tell you this, that tonight we're going to be having a Mashiach, a pre-candle lighting, pre-Yontiv YouTube, Facebook Live happening tonight at 7 o'clock. If you can join us, we're going to have a story, inspirational story, and lighting the candles. We'll be lighting the Yizkor candle then at 7 o'clock tonight. And also, we'll be doing a Havdalah ceremony right after the meal of Mashiach at 8:30 on Thursday night. We will resume regular virtual Torah study Friday morning, 8:30 a.m., right here with our regular Torah study. Now that Pesach is over, we'll go back to normal. And let me see, more comments coming in. My Shviger, I think the question is more, how do we prepare spiritually? Okay, so my mother-in-law says you got to prepare spiritually. Okay, fair enough. That's really the answer, I think, to your question. How do we prepare? No. How do we prepare spiritually? If that's the question, then the answer is spiritually by doing more mitzvahs. You don't want to be caught, not fully dressed. You want to be caught ready. You have to learn about Mashiach. That's how you welcome the Mashiach. You have to learn about the Mashiach. I'd love to find a way to schedule time to actually have a regular class in the coming of Mashiach. I'd really like to do that, maybe starting Friday. I'll incorporate a little section of Mashiach study. I think I'm gonna do that starting Friday morning. Now that Pesach is, if we pass Pesach without the coming of Mashiach, God forbid it happens. But if it does, then I think after Pesach, I'm going to start the regular study of Mashiach every morning. And it's interesting. Andy says you prep like you prep for a hurricane. You take it seriously. That's how you prep, says Andy. He's a down-to-earth kind of guy. You prep like for a hurricane. You think about all the details and you prepare for the unthinkable and you go out and do it, right? That's what you do. I love that answer, Andy. That is a very good answer, actually. Beautiful, Rob. When you die, you take nothing, but you have to take a suitcase for Mashiach. That's right, because when you die, you're going into a spiritual world. But when Mashiach comes, you're living a physical world. Remember, it's the dead that are coming to us. The dead are going to be resurrected, not we going to the dead. That's why you need a suitcase, because what do you wear? You got to have a clean pair of, Marty, see you on Friday. Rob Berger, I agree with my mother-in-law. It's not material preparation. Fair. Okay, maybe you don't need a material preparation, but okay, fine. So you don't need to inform your bank or your credit card. Maybe you do need to inform your credit card, actually. That could be interesting. You might need your credit card to know that you might be in Israel tomorrow. That's an interesting point. But definitely the preparation is spiritual. You need to be learning about Mashiach, understanding what this is all about, being mindful, conscious about the mitzvahs that we observe, praying with more contemplation and more connection, understanding how every single mitzvah that we do is bridging the gap. The final link of all the generations of Jewish history, and we're at the front and passing that baton to connect, to close the circuit, to turn the lights on, to bring Mashiach. That's what this is all about. Thank you, Rob, and my mother-in-law, my shviger. And I think that's a wrap. So again, folks, thank you for joining me here. I wish you all a very meaningful end of Pesach. Let's not pass over the end of Passover. Passover is the yontiv of miracles. It's the yontiv of being able to survive against all odds. Pesach is when we were slaves in Egypt without any prospects of redemption. Yet God took us out with an outstretched arm and extraordinary miracles. The prophet Hosea tells us, Ki meitzeis chameret Mitzrayim, as the days of your exodus from Egypt are enu niflois, so too will I show you wonders with the coming of Mashiach. Very similar to the redemption from Egypt will be the miracles of the exodus from Egypt. In fact, the Rabbi explains that the miracles that happened when we came out of Egypt will be like nothing compared to the wonders that will happen when Mashiach comes. So just like it was when we came out of Egypt, without any prospects of redemption, God made it happen. Just like when we stood at the Red Sea, without any prospects of survival. This is worse than, having no way of paying your bills, and God finds a way to give you the money that you need. Standing at the Red Sea with the Egyptians in hot pursuit and having nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And God says, keep on trucking. I've got you. I've got this, says God. That's what's going to happen with the coming of Mashiach. It's going to happen in the most wondrous of ways. It's going to be extraordinary. It's going to defy rhyme and reason and logic. And when it happens, we'll be like, wow. We just need to learn about it. We just need to understand that we are the ones that are going to make it happen. For some extraordinary reason, we've been selected to be the ones to welcome Mashiach. Let's not be caught asleep. Let's not be caught napping. Let's be awake and conscious. Just to tell you this, that the generation of Jews that died in the desert, the generation that came out of Egypt across the Red Sea, that experienced those extraordinary miracles, they didn't trust in Moses and God to enter the promised land. They said, God can take us out of Egypt. God can split the Red Sea, but God can't take us into the promised land. That is too much for God. And they didn't trust in God. The Arizal says that generation that died in the desert for 40 years, they will be resurrected. They will be reincarnated as the generation that will welcome the Mashiach. Friends, that's you and me. All of us. Rob, Marty, my mother-in-law, Bob Wertheimer, Gail, you two, Alyssa. Mashiach is coming in our lifetimes. We are those people that died in the desert. We've been in this together. We know each other. We're all old souls. This is deja vu. We've been through this together. Mashiach is coming. But this time we're not going to mess it up. Last time we messed it up because we didn't trust in God, that he could actually bring us into the promised land. We've been reincarnated so that we come back to this world for a tikkun olam, a fixing of the world, a fixing of our souls, a fixing of ourselves, that we can exhibit this trust in God and say, God, we know that you can do this. We don't know how. In fact, we don't care how. Blind trust brings blind blessing. That's the doctrine of blind trust. Bitachon. We trust in God. We know He's going to do it. We don't care how. And we are ready. That's what the Mashiach is all, the feast of Mashiach is all about. Just looking at the comments. Bob Woodheim, I feel the tension of Mashiach. Thank you, Bob. That is beautiful. I'm excited that you feel that. Alyssa, thank you, Matt, Rabbi, Mickey. Only good things to you, Rabbi, and your family, and the entire Chabad family. Amen. And the Siegel Team Chag Sameach. Helen Alec, be well to all from the back of the bus. Daniel Gicher, have a wonderful Passover, everyone. I am going to sign off. Oh, there's some comments coming in on YouTube. Thank you, Rabbi. It's a wonderful, Elaine, be totally receptive. Yes, to be totally receptive. That's what it's all about, Elaine. It's all about being totally receptive and ready. Friends, I'm going to sign off. Hopefully, we'll see you later at 7 o'clock tonight. And I'm going to also, at 1:30, by the way, we are going to do a radio show on YouTube and Facebook with Mitch on Mashiach. That's happening today. It's at 1:30 on YouTube and Facebook. You can join us then as well. Nothing else to do, right? And we'll catch you later. Chag Sameach. See you in Jerusalem tonight. Good Yantiv.